Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto, rokudaime Hokage Kage Summit. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Son Kenshin and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. The 6th Hokage's Konoha, Hokage Monument. Naruto breathed in and out as he walked through the forests towards Konoha. He was mentally and physically exhausted after the two battles he waged this day. If it wasn't for his father, the Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato, he would have unleashed the Kyuubi fully in an attempt to defeat pain. He could still remember Hinata laying on the ground in a pool of blood and he closed his eyes, hoping that she was okay. Putting his hand against the bark of a tree, he began breathing in and out, settling himself before walking forward again. His confrontation with Nagato himself was one of the toughest challenges he had ever went through. He had wanted to kill Nagato so badly, he was literally shaking when facing him. Youth couldn't do it. It wouldn't have been what Jiraiya would have wanted. Naruto had done the impossible and managed to change Nagato's mind. No, Nagato had entrusted the future to him, had to find a way to bring peace to the world, even for a short time. Hiro Sennin's book can change the world, but how? I need to find the answer, Naruto thought, setting his hand on another tree. The first thing I have to do is become Hokage. Thinking of Sasuke, he closed his eyes. This is more important than you, Sasuke. Though someday, I will bring you back. Nearly tripping, he found himself being caught and he blinked to see Kakashi and Hinata there, steadying him. Kakashi-sensei. Hinata-chan. When Mitsuya-sama informed us that you had beaten Pain and had finished confronting the person behind Pain. She also told us you were exhausted, so I let Hinata-sama here lead me to you, Kakashi said with his smiley eye. Naruto, you did good. Hinata's breath was caught in her throat as she looked at Naruto, who gave her an exhausted smile. I'm glad you're alright, Hinata-chan. Hinata blushed and she forced herself to stay conscious. Thank you, Naruto-kun, thank God you're okay. Naruto smiled and Kakashi carried him the rest of the way as Hinata walked next to them. Getting through the rest of the forest, Naruto's eyes widened to see the entirety of Konoha gathered waiting for him. Welcome back, Naruto. We believed in you. You're a hero, Naruto. Welcome home. Thank you. Naruto blinked as the villagers showered praise and thanks onto their new hero. They've all been waiting for you, Naruto. Kakashi thought about what Naruto said when they first met. My dream is to become greater than the Hokages. I'll make everyone acknowledge my existence. He let his student down, smiling. Naruto, you did magnificently. Welcome home. The crowd said again, running over to Naruto, Kakashi and Hinata, and they began patting him on the back and congratulating him. I told them everything that happened, Kitsuya said, poking out of Naruto's collar. Quickly, Naruto was swamped by the villagers who were cheering him on. What's he like? Is he hurt? Ow. Don't shove, Naruto said, and everyone continued to swamp him. On top of Gamakichi's head stood Fukasaku and Shima, who were watching Naruto with pride. Sakura slowly made her way to Naruto as Hinata wiped her eye as a single tear of joy trickled down. Sakura-chan, Naruto said as his best friend came over. Always so reckless, dummy. Sakura yelled, slamming her fist into the sage's stomach, making him wheeze, and she hugged him, surprising the rest of the crowd. Naruto, thank you. Everyone smiled at that and Sakura looked at Hinata, letting Naruto go, and she walked over to the other young woman and nudged her slightly in the sage's direction. The Hyuga era stumbled and out of reflex, Naruto caught her and the two blinked in the crowd began clapping and cheering. Hinata-chan, you risked your life to save him and contributed to his victory, Sakura thought, smiling as she stood next to her sensei. Naruto and Hinata blinked and Naruto smiled, reflecting on his former student's past. The sad, lonely boy who just wanted to be acknowledged as a great ninja had now achieved that goal. Naruto began to be tossed in the air and caught by the crowd and he began laughing and cheering. Haruka adjusted his headband, smiling. On the outskirts, Zetsu looked at the scene in shock. I never thought Pain would be defeated. We better go tell Madara won't be happy. With that, he sunk into the tree branch he was spying on the village on. In the crowd of villagers, an Anbu landed behind Narashikaku, the head jonin of Konoha. He was standing next to his old teammates, watching as the rest of the villagers celebrated Naruto's return. What is it? Emergency meeting, you're to report to the council room immediately. Already, huh? Shikaku asked with a sigh, closing his eyes. Akatsuki hideout, unknown location. Standing in front of the still summoned Jito Meizo statue, Zetsu was telling Madara of Pain's defeat. The true Akatsuki leader squeezed his hand into a tight fist. He closed his permanently activated Sharingan eye as Zetsu finished. So that's what happened. What are you going to do now? Oh, Konan's not coming back. We need to find another person to sync with the Jito Meizo, Madara said, compassing himself. Kisame, you track down the Hachibi. I have another matter to attend to. Konoha. After the initial celebrations died down, the citizens of Konoha started rebuilding. Akatsuki could crush their buildings, but it could not put out their will of fire. Tents were set up on the former battleground to house the people of the village, while parties would go out to search for suitable building materials in the debris. In one of the medical tents, Tsunade was resting, her youthful appearance had faded. Sakura and Shizune were healing her, doing chakra transfusions, while Naruto and Kakashi stood by. "We were lucky she didn't die," Sakura said, her hands glowing green as she began to pump her own chakra into Tsunade's body. "And we're lucky she'll recover. How long'll take for her to wake up, Sakura-chan?" Naruto asked as his teammate lifted her hands off of the Hokage's chest. "I'm not sure, it'll be anywhere from a few days to a few weeks, and Konoha is at a crucial juncture. We need her to wake up," Sakura said, doing some more seals and pressing her hands down over Tsunade's chest, healing, soothing green chakra pumping back into her sensei's system. Kakashi nodded. "And temporary Hokage'll have to be appointed in her place then. Shikaku-san has been summoned by the daimyo for that very reason," Kakashi, Shizune said, replacing the dishcloth that was on Tsunade's forehead with a fresh one. "I think you're going to be appointed." Kakashi blinked. "Me? Beauty'd be terrible at the job," he then patted Naruto's back. "Naruto's more than ready, I believe." Naruto blinked, his jaw lowered. Are you serious, Kakashi-sensei?" "Yes," Kakashi said, looking at his former student. "Let's face it, you're stronger than me, and you were able to beat pain and negotiate with the man behind pain, which lead to everyone who pain killed being revived." Naruto nodded, breathing out. "But I will am a great ninja, but I don't know if I'm ready yet." "Not many leaders are, Naruto," Kakashi said with a smile. "But they have leadership thrust upon them." The sage blinked at his sensei's vote of confidence and he smiled, rubbing the back of his head. "Thanks, sensei." Fire Country capital. In the capital building of the Fire Country, the leaders of Konoha as well as the leaders of Fire Country had gathered. At the head was the daimyo, the lord of the Fire Country, and one of the most powerful leaders on the continent. For Konoha's leaders, there were the three elders, Midakata Himura, Udatain Kaheru and Shimura Danzo, as well as the Anbu general and head Jonin Nara Shikaku. "We will continue to work with the other countries to deal with the Akatsuki threat," Himura began, folding his hands in front of him. "After what's happened to the village, the Fire Country will put every resource into getting it rebuilt," the Minister of the Treasury stated. "First we'll have to come up with a budget and then consider the strain on the other nations." "There is something else to consider first," Danzo stated, looking at the people gathered. He was keeping his eye in reserve. "Who will be the next Hokage?" "It is coming to that, Danzo. You are going to make your move, aren't you?" Shikaku thought. "Can we not wait till Tsunade Hime has recovered? According to the reports of her students, she should be better in a few weeks," the daimyo, Lord Takase Ieyasu suggested. "She is still Hokage, after all." "My lord, Tsunade Hime is partially responsible for the village's construction," Kaheru said, and Shikaku sighed. "She is not, Kaheru-sama. Pain was going to destroy the village anyway, he had to preserve his secret which our men had found out," Shikaku said, interrupting Kaheru's tirade. "And if there is anyone who should fill in for Tsunade, I have two recommendations." "And they are, Shikaku?" Ieyasu asked. Ada Kakashi, the copy ninja and former apprentice to the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, or Uzumaki Naruto, apprentice to the late Jiraiya-sama, and the boy who saved the village from pain, Shikaku said while folding his hands. Ieyasu was intrigued. "Both seem fine choices, however, isn't Naruto-san still a teenager?" "Yes, but he has much experience fighting Akatsuki, having encountered them several times," Shikaku replied. "And I think it should be obvious who his father is now, as well. He is Minato-sama's very son." That was the clincher for the daimyo, and Danzo decided it was best not to use his trump now. "The boy's inexperience will lead Konoha into ruin, he will be there to pick up the pieces," Danzo thought, and he opened his eyes. "I agree with Shikaku-san's assessment. Naruto is a fine choice." "Then it's decided, the rokudaime Hokage will be Uzumaki Naruto," Ieyasu said, folding his fan up. To be continued. Chapter 2. Naruto's Hokage. The 5 Kage summit commences Konoha while the heads of Konoha were at the fire capital deciding the next Hokage, and nearly 2 days had passed. All around the village reconstruction was happening. Tenzo, also known as Yamato, was using his Mokuton to construct new houses 2 at a time. Other ninja, like Genma, Aoba and Raido, were sifting through debris for usable lumber for standard reconstruction. Word had already been sent to the surrounding allied countries to send their best carpenters, their best architects, and building supplies to the village. Wave Country and Wind Country were the first to respond, their people entering Konoha through what remained of the east and south entrances. Among the carpenters from Wave Country were Inari and Tazuna, Naruto's, Sakura's, and Kakashi's old friends. Team Kakashi itself was helping with the reconstruction as best they could and were helped a lot by Hinata. Naruto would use his clones to put up the skeleton of a structure, Hinata would use her Byakugan to tell the clones and the sage where to keep things still, and Sakura would use her strength to press nails in to secure the structure. Kakashi would then begin to fill the skeleton out. With Naruto's help, the walls were put up on said building and secured by Sakura. Finally, after a few hours, the building was done on the outside, all that had to be done was the plumbing and wiring. The group took their seats near some lumber for a little break. Naruto wiped his forehead, looking at the new building they had constructed with a little pride. Like his father, the Yondaime Hokage had said, Konoha could be rebuilt. His thoughts wandered on the warning Minato had given him, the man with the mask Uchiha Madara, known as Tobi to him. He remembered how he couldn't land one blow on Tobi when they encountered him before Sasuke's latest disappearance after his battle with Itachi. He just fizzed right through his body. No damage whatsoever. His father thought he'd be able to get the power to bypass it using the Kage but just didn't know how. To defeat that man you must have a special power, Naruto Minato had told him, and Naruto closed his eyes. He took a seat and he stretched. Naruto-kun. He looked up to see Hinata walking over to him. Hey Hinata-chan, thanks for the help here. Those eyes of yours are pretty sweet, he said with a grin. Hinata blushed and she fought down a stammer. Thank you Naruto-kun, how are you doing? Naruto breathed out. Better than I was before, thanks, Hinata-chan, and thank you for trying to save my life. Why, you're welcome Naruto-kun, Hinata said, slowly taking a seat next to him. You're the village hero no Naruto-kun. You've got the recognition that you've always wanted. Naruto smiled. Yeah, I have, he leaned forward. But things aren't done yet. Konoha has to be rebuilt and Akatsuki has to be defeated. But with Pain dead, Naruto-kun shouldn't Akatsuki mostly be defeated? Hinata asked him and Naruto closed his eyes. Not even close. I don't know how many Biju they've taken but it has to be most of them. Not only that Pain wasn't the real leader was the front guy, Naruto breathed out. I wanted to tell Oba-chan that but she's still unconscious after sacrificing most of her chakra to save the villagers. Hinata nodded slowly and Naruto looked at her. Did you mean what you said? Hinata blinked. What? You said that you loved me before you attacked Pain. Did you mean it? Hinata blushed and she fidgeted a bit before she breathed out. I meant every word, Naruto-kun. I've loved you ever since I first saw you training way back when we were kids. She waited for his response and he smiled. Thanks for telling me, Hinata-chan, don't know how I feel about you just yet but he leaned back. I'll figure it out, he promised to give you an answer soon, Hinata-chan. Take as long as you need Naruto-kun, Hinata said, smiling back at him. Boy, Naruto. A new voice said, and Naruto looked up to see an old man with a gray beard and hair and a boy with black hair coming over. Both were wearing carpenter's uniforms. Old man Tazuna? Naruto asked, blinking. Yep, Tazuna replied, and the boy grinned. Wait, Inari. Wow, you've gotten tall for a kid your age. Naruto said with a grin and Inari smirked. I bet I'm taller than you were when you were 12, Naruto. He was a shorty back then, I don't deny that, Naruto said with a grin, rubbing the back of his head. Wow, who's this girl with you, Naruto? She's really pretty, is she your girlfriend? Inari asked, making both Naruto and Hinata blush. I always thought you'd get together with that Sakura girl, but I guess she got together with Sasuke. At the mention of Sasuke, Naruto looked down. Sasuke's not in Konoha anymore. What? Inari and Tazuna asked. It's a long story guys, Naruto replied, breathing out. And I doubt he'll want to come back. Oh, we're kind of hoping to see him with you, Sakura and Kakashi, Naruto, Tazuna said, rubbing the back of his head. Guess things change over the years, huh? Naruto nodded. Things change a lot. Well, can we catch up later, Naruto? Inari asked, and he smirked. Bet you have a bunch of stories. Hey, I think I do, Naruto said with a grin as he and Hinata noticed something. It was Kiba riding Akamaru over. Guys. Kiba yelled, dashing over. The elders are back, Shikaku is back. Naruto blinked. They airy do you, Naruto, the daimyo's made you the new Hokage. Kiba said, skidding to a halt in front of them and Naruto and Hinata blinked and then their jaws dropped. What? Naruto asked, blinking as Kakashi and Sakura dashed over, hearing that announcement. Daimyo Samus made you the new Hokage and Tsunade Sama's absence. Kiba told him, breathing in and out. I didn't believe it either, but Shikaku gave me something to give you. Here. Kiba handed Naruto a scroll, which had the daimyo's official seal. His eyes widened and he opened it. Uesegi Takise, named Uzumaki Naruto as the rokudaime Hokage of Konoha. Depending on his performance, he may keep the position if Tsunade Haim awakens. Below it was the daimyo's signature and Naruto breathed out and he fell on his rear. He read the message multiple times, letting it sink in. He wiped his forehead and he looked at Hinata, then Kakashi, then Sakura and then Inari and Tazuna. I see really am Hokage, Naruto whispered, breathing out. I'm Hokage. That's Fitsukami, Sakura said, breathing out, and Naruto stood up before falling back. The happy smile was now on his face. I'm Hokage, he repeated, almost cheering. Gaara, I've finally caught up. Outskirts of Konoha, the Kumo envoy, which consisted of the students of Killer Bee, the eight-tailed Jinchuriki, were walking towards Konoha after a long journey where, thanks to Carrie's no sense of direction, had gotten them lost many times. But now, thanks to Samui, team leader, they had finally gotten on track. Amoy gave a sigh, taking his pop out of his mouth. What should I do? Carrie asked, looking over to him. Oh, he was just wondering what I should do, Amoy said, putting his finger to his cheek. If there are a ton of cute girls in Konoha and they all fall for me. Oh, that'd be a problem, Carrie said sarcastically. Why don't you just date them then? Go out with whoever asks first. Yeah, but what should I do if when I have to leave Konoha, she says she loves me so much that she can't bear to be apart? I'm scared she might want us to commit suicide together. How far are you playing out these scenarios? Carrie asked in exasperation. We haven't even gotten to Konoha yet. You're freaking me out. Some guy who looks really hot might come onto you too, Amoy pointed out. Just use the word hot. Anyway, know that you mention it, Carrie said, rubbing her face and blushing slightly. Some rich tall popular hot might come onto me, you never know. Nah. You're just overthinking things, it'll never happen. Amoy told her, scoffing at the thought. Carrie got angry, picked up a rock. Who are you to talk? Amoy bent his entire body to dodge and the rock went into the trees. What if that rock had hit a boulder and the boulder crumbled and then pieces of the boulder caused another boulder to crumble and caused a huge avalanche to bury Konoha? You're the one who's overthinking things. Carrie roared at him. Short Lithier on the wall of Konoha looking down at the massive crater. The wind whistled around them and the color on Carrie's face drained. No way. I didn't do it on purpose. Did that little pebble really cause all this damage? Carrie cried out, tears flowing from her nervous face. Hey Carrie, what have you done? Amoy asked. Don't be ridiculous, let's go find someone to talk to, Samui ordered them. Konoha Naruto was getting fitted for his robes, breathing in and out nervously. He couldn't believe he was Hokage. Just 2 days ago, he had saved the village from pain and was a genin, and now he was Hokage until Tsunade awakens. Kakashi watched his student be fitted for the robes, swelling with pride. His student, the #1 unpredictable ninja Uzumaki Naruto, had been named Hokage. He wondered if this is what Jiraiya had felt when Minato became Hokage. Hokage-sama, a voice said and Naruto turned to see Shizune there. We have visitors. Visitors? Naruto asked, blinking as a tall, busty blonde woman wearing a black t-shirt that exposed her midriff as well as her cleavage, as well as a short skirt walked in. On her forehead was a Kumo headband. Can I help you? Yes, you can. My name is Samui, Sama. The Yondaime Hokage has called for a summit of the Kages in Iron Country to deal with the Akatsuki problem, the woman said, handing him a letter. Recently, the Akatsuki member, Uchiha Sasuke, captured Sama's brother, the Jinchuriki of the eight-tailed ox, Killer Bee. Naruto seemed to freeze, as well as Kakashi. Excuse me, can you repeat that? Uchiha Sasuke has joined Akatsuki, Samui said, looking at the young Hokage. That has to be impossible. Would Sasuke join Akatsuki? Naruto whispered, breathing out. Forcing himself to stand, he grabbed the letter to be sure. Thank you, I'll get ready to go right away. Samui nodded and she bowed respectfully to the new Hokage and she left the room. Naruto's hand shook as he held the letter and he closed his eyes. He now knew that Sasuke would never be able to return to Konoha now. He was not only a missing ninja but a member of Akatsuki and he had taken a Jinchuriki. Naruto, Kakashi whispered, walking over to his student. I'm Fune-sensei, Naruto said, breathing out. I have to get ready for this immediate, like you to be one of my bodyguards. Hi, Kakashi said, nodding. Naruto breathed in, putting his Hokage hat on. I wonder if this is what Iro Sennin felt when Orochimaru defected. Higher country. Sasuke was leading his team, Taka, towards Konoha. The last Uchiha was determined in his new goal, the destruction of Konoha, as well as the murdering of the elders, in revenge for what the Uchiha clan and Itachi were put through. Sasuke was focused on getting his latest revenge, still hadn't told his team his plan of killing the entirety of Konoha down to the very last child, the very last infant. He didn't care that he was going against Itachi's wishes. He didn't care that he had lied to his team. Nothing was going to stop him from completing this goal. He then noticed something appearing in a spiral in front of him. An orange mask with a spiral pattern appeared and then a body covered in the Akatsuki cloak. Narrowing his eyes, his hand sparked with a Chidori and he burst forward towards Madara, who was now standing in front of them. Karen, Sujetsu and Jugo skidded to a halt as Sasuke pushed forward with his Chidori and went through Madara. By going through meant literally, in essence, Sasuke didn't even touch him. What? Sasuke thought as he skidded forward and Madara turned to him. TSK, 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 Sasuke, you disappoint me, Madara said, folding his hands and Sasuke's eyes narrowed. What do you want? I pulled my part of our bargain, giving you the Hachibi, Sasuke asked and Madara's Sharingan glared at him. You failed, Sasuke, our agreement still stands, Madara told him coldly and Sasuke, Jugo, Karen and Sujetsu's eyes widened. What? That's impossible. We brought him back to you, Sugetsu said. All we got is one tentacle. It seems that Killer Bee pulled the wool over your eyes, Madara said, and Sasuke remembered the Hachibi's tail falling on Karen and he was forced to cut it. So that's how he did it, ingenious, Sasuke thought, and he straightened up. If you're heading to Konoha, you're wasting your time, Madara said, and he looked at the group. My partner, Pain, has already destroyed it. What? Sasuke demanded and glanced at Karen. Karen turned on her Eye of the Kagura Jutsu, reaching out to Konoha. She could feel an incredibly powerful residual chakra. Much more powerful than Sasuke. All I can confirm is a residual chakra in Konoha dwarfs mostly all others. That's Pain, Madara said, looking at Sasuke. You still work for me, Sasuke, and I need you to head to the Kage Summit in Iron Country. No deal, Sasuke snarled, his eyes changing to the Sharingan. Our alliance is over, Madara. Madara frowned as Zetsu rose up from a tree branch. A new Hokage has been chosen, the white half said. Who is it? Danzo. Kakashi. Madara asked, glancing at the black and white Venus flytrap shinobi. Neither. It's Uzumaki Naruto. The kid who beat Pain, Zetsu replied, and Sasuke's eyes widened momentarily. He may be even stronger than Sasuke now. Yeah, he's got some powerful new abilities. Stronger than Sasuke snarled, and then he laughed. Madara, I'm heading to Konoha. Don't try to stop me. How about we make a deal then? Madara asked him. If you beat me, our alliance is ended and you can do whatever you want. But if you can't, you have to do what I say for the time being. Sasuke growled. Fine. He dashed towards Madara, his hand sparking with the Chidori, and he shot one out in the Chidori Iso, Chidori sharp spear, and he brought it down on the branch that Madara was standing on. The Akatsuki leader leaped off the falling branch as Sasuke leaped towards him, throwing his Chidori out. Madara dodged, catching the fallen Uchiha's wrist, and he slammed his foot into Sasuke's stomach, sending him crashing back into the tree. Sasuke growled, flying through the seals, and he shot a blast of flame, the Kaiten. Goryuken no Jutsu, fire release. Great Dragon Fire Technique, shooting out a massive dragon-shaped fireball that roared at Madara. The Akatsuki leader let it harmlessly pass through his body, and he lifted his own hands. Without doing any seals, or even calling out its name, he fired the Kaiten. Chou Hasenka no Jutsu, fire release. Super Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique, several large massive fireballs shot from where Madara's mouth could be, each colored blue, at Sasuke. Sasuke's eyes widened, and he dodged to the side as Madara continued to fire the large blue fireballs like a machine gun. I've never seen a technique like that before. Sasuke thought, comparing his own Hasenka no Jutsu to the technique Madara was using, while his team jumped or dodged the fireballs. Gritting his teeth, his eyes morphed to the atom-looking six-pointed Mangekyo Sharingan he possessed, and blood flowed from his left eye. Amaterasu. Yelling, a fireball was shot out of nowhere and appeared on Madara. The first Uchiha snarled, throwing his arms up around the Amaterasu flames. To Sasuke's astonishment, the flames were then sucked into Madara's eye and vanished. Madara then vanished into his eye and teleported right behind Sasuke and slammed his fist into Sasuke's back. Sasuke slammed down to the ground. He managed to turn to face up as Madara landed on him, his foot slamming into Sasuke's stomach. Sasuke coughed up blood and Madara leaned down. At that moment, their eyes met and the fallen Uchiha's right eye began bleeding. Tsukiyomi. Sasuke roared, and Madara found himself in a red and black world, and several feathers pierced his body. So this is your Tsukiyomi, Madara said, unimpressed. Pathetic. To Sasuke's horror, Madara shattered his Tsukiyomi like it was nothing, and he bent down, grabbing Sasuke by the neck. The fallen Uchiha looked into his ancestor's eye, which had shifted to his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Sasuke then found himself in the red and black world of the Tsukiyomi. It was just as intense as Itachi's. Welcome to my Tsukiyomi, Sasuke, Madara's voice echoed in his mind. I admit, I'm not on Itachi's level, but Itachi usually held back. I'm not. Sasuke looked down at his hand, which began melting, and he began crying in pain. So for 12 years you'll be melted and reformed over and over again by my Chikrenjoi. A second later, in the real world, Sasuke was coughing up blood. Itachi said, you weary a shadow of your former self. I am, Madara told him, tossing Sasuke to Karen. However, I'm more than powerful enough to teach you our hierarchy. Think of it this way, heading to the Kage Summit and taking out 1 or 2 cages will show how strong you really are. After all, if you figured out my ability, you could beat me. Why don't you do it yourself if you're this strong? Sasuke panted as he rolled up Karen's sleeve and bit into her wrist, healing chakra beginning to flow into his body. Remember our agreement. You lost, Sasuke, so you have to do what I say, Madara told him, smirking behind his mask. Fine, Sasuke said, standing up after healing. Madara vanished for a second, then reappeared, tossing the Akatsuki cloaks. There, to signify you are members of Akatsuki, Madara said, and he pulled out Itachi's ring, tossing it to Sasuke. To make it official. Since until you can defeat me, Sasuke, you are a member of Akatsuki. Sasuke took a deep breath, putting on the black robe with red clouds, after discarding his other cloak and he slipped on the ring. He was now a full member of Akatsuki no and he looked at the rest of Team Taka. Sujetsu was grumbling about wearing an Akatsuki cloak again, putting the decapitating carving knife back on his back. Jugo was pulling his cloak on, and Karen had finished putting on hers. Well, we have our orders, Sasuke said with disgust. Let's head to the land of iron and get into post-ion. Just a moment, Sasuke, Madara said, looking at Zetsu. The strange-looking shinobi then split in two, a black arm appearing on the black side and a white arm appearing on the white side where the divide happened. Zetsu here will accompany you. He'll be of some help. Zetsu's white half leaped over after Madara tossed him an Akatsuki cloak. I'm ready to go now, Sasuke, Zetsu's white half said with a grin. Ninjas don't get into our way, Sasuke ordered, and they turned and leaped away, heading northeast towards the land of iron. That was risky, wasn't it, boss? Zetsu's black half said, looking at Madara. Just 30 seconds longer in that battle and Sasuke would have defeated you, correct? Yes, Madara said, squeezing his hand into a fist. Hence a greater reason to become complete soon. Zetsu, prepare to initiate the Eye of the Moon plan. Hi, Madara, the black half of Zetsu said. Without another word, the two vanished, Madara using his teleportation jutsu vanish into his eye until he completely disappeared. Zetsu sank into the ground, also disappearing, leaving the battleground where Sasuke and Madara fought behind. Konoha, Northern Gate. Naruto had selected Neji Hyuga as his second bodyguard for the summit and he, Kakashi and Neji were departing. The rest of the rookies and Team Guy were seeing them off, as well as most of Konoha. Several people were cheering on Naruto, wishing their new hero luck in the summit. Kakashi and Neji had on brown robes for protection against the cold in the land of iron, which was a country that was covered by snow. Well, let's get going, Naruto said, placing his Hokage hat on his head as he took a deep breath. Before walking out. I guess I'm not going to have a better time to do this, sensei. Kakashi looked at him. Do what? Most of Konoha's Hireso, this is the best place to do it. Naruto lifted his hat up as the wind began blowing and he turned to Konoha's populace. For now on, I protect this village. Kakashi smirked at that as the people of Konoha began cheering and whistling in joy at that. Well, now that that is done, I believe we should depart, Hokage-sama. Right, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said with a grin. He did that to feel better was still down that Sasuke had fallen off the path so much couldn't be saved anymore. Kakashi-sensei, Neji, let's go. Hi, Hokage-sama. Kakashi and Neji said at the same time and the three began walking out of Konoha. Kumagakure, the mountaintop village of Kumagakure, the village hidden in the colds, the Yondaime Reikage A, had finished getting ready for the summit. He selected his two bodyguards, Shai as a censor, Kumo's top medical ninja and Jinjutsu specialist, and Dari, his ninjutsu specialist swordsman who was a master of the Keki Genkai, storm release, with him. Shai had medium-length blonde hair which covered his blue eyes as well as white skin and was wearing Kumo's standard Jonin uniform of a one-strap, grey-colored chunin vest, as well as grey pants. Dari had black skin like most of the people in Kumo and had short spiky white hair and a large sword on his back that lacked a point and was also dressed like Shai. The Reikage himself was a tall, imposing man who was extremely muscular and he had his Reikage robe open to expose his muscular chest and around his wrists were thick, metal gauntlets that looked like they weighed a ton each and around his waist was the ogre belt and he was wearing dark black pants. Dari, Shai, ready to go? I asked, crouching down near the window. Hi, Reikage-sama, both said, wincing as they saw what the Reikage was about to do. Then let's go. I yelled, and with that, he jumped out the window of the Reikage tower, falling several hundred meters before landing on his feet before dashing towards the southern entrance. Dari and Shai sighed, and they walked out the door after telling A's secretary to get someone in to fix the window in the Reikage's office. This was going to be a long journey. Kurigakure in the mist-covered Isle of Water Country, in Kurigakure, the village hidden in the mists, Terumi Mei, the extremely attractive, brown-haired Gade Mizukage, was preparing to leave with her two bodyguards, the young seven swordsman Chijuro, and the leader of the Undertakers, Kiri's elite hunter ninja unit, were preparing to go while standing on the docks. The group of villagers were seeing them off. Mei was wearing a blue, low-cut kimono that showed off her impressive cleavage and legs with ninja mesh under it, and she was carrying her robes in the pack on her back. Chijuro was wearing his glasses, a white long-sleeved shirt with vertical black stripes, and cargo pants that were blue and black. Around his chest was where his headband was, connected to the harness that carried the Hirameki, his two-handled sword in its unreleased form. Ao's white hair was standing up in a point and he was wearing strange-looking earrings that had tags over them, and his right eye was covered in an eye patch. He was wearing the same white sleeve shirt that Chijuro was wearing, but had a blue kimono over his body and around his forehead was his headband. "Sir, I swear on my name as Mizukage I will fulfill my duty," Mei said as she took her Mizukage hat from the elder as he handed it to her. "The Ho-Ho is one of the great 7 swordsmen, you must protect Mizukage-sama." "Do think you'll be fine?" Probably Chijuro said, stammering. "Have faith in yourself, you're strong," Mei told Chijuro gently, making him blush. "That's why you were chosen to guard me, okay, Chijuro. He'll try my best." "I hope," Chijuro said, blushing and smiling. "She's so kind. All you need to say is yes ma'am. No one wants to hear your waffling. You kids today, just be a man," Ao said in disgust as darkness descended over Mei's eyes. "A man? Ao, enough with the lecture. You need to hurry or else you'll be late for the meeting." "Need a man?" Mei thought. "I'm just giving the kid advice. When I was his age." "Shut up or I'll kill you," Mei said sweetly after turning to Ao, baffling him. "Huh?" Ao thought as his jaw dropped. Mei held up her hat. "Come on now, Chijuro, let's go. I'll protect her beautiful smiley Fiken," Chijuro thought eagerly as they got onto the boat and departed. Iwagakure no Wagakure, the village hidden in the rocks, which was nestled in a valley surrounded by large mountains, Inoki of the 2 scales, was getting ready to go with his bodyguards. He was the Sandaime Tsuchikage, a contemporary of Sarutobi Hiruzen and the oldest living Kage in the 5 countries. He was also the shortest. He had long white hair, a large nose with bumps on it, and a white pointy mustache and pointy beard. He was also wearing the Tsuchikage robes, with the hat hanging around his neck. His 2 bodyguards were Kuretsuchi, a pretty black-haired kunoichi who wore her hair in a bun and was 2-strap grey chunin vest, black t-shirt and black pants, and was carrying a big box on her back. The other was Akatsuki, a tall fat shinobi wearing the same outfit with a big nose and a perpetual smile on his chubby face. "You can do it, Tsuchikage-sama. Kuretsuchi, Akatsuki, you better protect him, you hear?" A bunch of shinobi said on a bridge that was over the eastern gate. "At my age, this meeting'll be a pain," Inoki said, putting his hand onto his back and groaning. "You youngsters don't understand what it's like when your hips are a virtual time bomb." "How about it, Gramps, thinking of retiring?" Kuretsuchi teased as the Tsuchikage put his hand onto the box. "You can't rely on your former glory forever." "Ha ha ha ha, I'll take your luggage for you, Tsuchikage-sama," Akatsuki said, and he began to lift up the box. "Don't touch, Akatsuki." Inoki ordered and he slipped his arms into his luggage's harnesses. "I don't need your help." He then lifted and there was a crack and his hips gave out. "OHHH. My hips. What do you say? Should you send someone else in your place?" Kuretsuchi joked. Don't be ridiculous." "Who do you think I am?" Inoki demanded, his eyes bugging out from the pain. "I am the Sandaime Tsuchikage, the great and fearsome leader of Iwagakure. Who'll carry my own luggage." "But grieve what a stubborn old man," Kuretsuchi groaned, closing her eyes and rubbing the bridge of her nose. "Alright, I'll carry your luggage then. Let's go." Akatsuki said, lifting Inoki and his luggage up with ease and putting them on his shoulder. With that, 3-3 departed down the road towards the land of iron. Sunagakure's Sunagakure, the village hidden in the sand, Gaara, the god-named Kazukiage was preparing to leave with his siblings who he had chosen to be his bodyguards. He was wearing his Kazukiage robes and his hat was hanging loosely around his neck, hitting the giant gourd he was wearing on his back that was carrying his sand. Despite losing the Shukaku, Gaara was as strong as ever, hell, he was arguably stronger. He still had his automatic sand shield, but he had been training for the past few months in Taijutsu, so he wouldn't rely on it anymore, and he had added dozens of Fuiten jutsus to his arsenal, and another reason why he was stronger, he could finally sleep without worrying about the Shukaku taking control. Ankuro stood next to him, his face paint changed, one purple line over his eyes, one over his mouth, and one going up his chin to connect with the one on his mouth, and he was still wearing his black outfit. Tamari had a white cloak on and on her back was a large scroll, and she was wearing white shinobi armor under her cloak which had no sides. "You were late, Kankuro," Baki chided his student as he stood with Ibizo and the rest of the villagers. "It took me a while to figure out this new trick," Kankuro said with a grin. "Be careful, Kazuki-sama," Mitsuri, Gaara's student as well as girlfriend said with a smile. "Kankuro, take good care of him," Ibizo said with a smile. "We will," Tamari said with a smile, waving a new small fan over her face to keep herself cool. "Alright, let's go," Gaara told his siblings, turning to leave. "Not like Gaara needs bodyguards," Kankuro said with a grin, giving a thumbs up to the villagers. The 3 began walking off and the sand began to move under their feet and then the 3 stood still. Gaara then levitated the sand under their feet and they began to depart at a high amount of speed towards the land of iron in the northeast. To be continued. Chapter 3. Attack on the summit Iron Country. After a 3-day journey, Naruto, Kakashi and Neji were hiking through the snow towards the summit building, a massive fortress with 3 wolf-like heads, naturally carved by wind, snow and ice. The young Hokage was learning from his sensei along the way about the country. It was the only nation on the continent which didn't use ninja. It uses samurai, who were on par with Chunin and Jonin shinobi, and their generals could hang with even elite Jonin or Kages. Kage-sama probably chose this country due to its strategic location and neutrality, Kakashi said as they walked. Naruto nodded. Truthfully, he had only been paying half attention to what his former sensei was saying. He was reviewing his decision about Sasuke. Wondering if it was too soon to declare Sasuke missing ninja. Did he know the entire story? I'll have my full answer when we meet again to see if Sasuke really is in Akatsuki. Naruto, are you paying attention? Kakashi asked, waving his hand in front of Naruto's face. Sorry sensei, spaced out a bit, Naruto said with a grin, rubbing the back of his head. I'll know what to do when I see him again. Kakashi nodded, looking at his former student. It's about Sasuke, huh? Yeah, Naruto said, breathing out and closing his eyes. Maybe I should have got the full story from the Cloud Ninja before departing. Sometimes leaders have to make quick decisions without knowing the full story, Naruto, Neji offered as they walked. Thanks Neji, Naruto said as they walked. So what are your intentions to my cousin, Naruto? Neji asked out of the blue, and the young Hokage tripped and fell face first into the snow. Where did that come from? Naruto demanded, picking himself up and shaking his head. She did nearly die to save you from pain. I just want to know your intentions, Neji said coolly. Well, we talked about it and I don't know what to do now, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head. And is this really the time? Very well Naruto, we shall discuss in length later, Neji said as they continued to walk towards the summit building. Konoha, Sakura, Hinata and Sai were sitting and talking about recent events. Naruto had been made Hokage and a few Kumo ninja had gone to talk to him. The next thing Naruto did before leaving was add Sasuke of all people to the bingo book. His teammates, Sakura and Sai, had been very surprised about this, as was Hinata. Naruto has the responsibilities of a Hokage now, Sakura, Sai said gently, leaning back. Whatever Sasuke did must have warranted this. I know we know, Sakura said, breathing out and closing her eyes. But what? Of all people, Naruto should still hold out on some hope. And maybe Sasuke invaded Kumagakure's borders or something or killed a few of their shinobi, Hinata said. It was probably to avoid war with Kumo. Sakura nodded, breathing out as she looked up to see two people coming over. Two of the Kumo ninja on the pond, the three Konoha ninja were talking near. One was a dark-skinned boy with white hair and a girl with long red hair. The boy pointed at them. Tell us everything about Sasuke. He demanded, pointing at Sakura. What? Sakura asked him bluntly, looking at the boy directly. You heard him, tell us everything, the girl said, putting her hand on her sword. Or we'll make you tell us. Sakura stood up. What did Sasuke do? She started as the Kumo girl charged at her, taking out her sword. Sakura, Hinata and Sai leaped out of the way of the katana as the boy also attacked. Hinata activated her Byakugan and dodged several stabs from the boy as the girl slashed at Sai and Sakura. The root ninja pulled out his tanto, blocking a vertical slash from the Kumo girl, and he kicked her away, back onto the pond. The two Kumo ninja went back to back and began attacking Sakura, Hinata and Sai in tandem. Sakura dodged a slash from the boy as the girl spun for a kick. Tsunade's apprentice caught her kick with one hand, squeezed the girl's ankle hard and spun and slammed her into the boy. Both Kumo ninja rolled, tumbling before leaping back onto their feet on dry land. Sai unleashed a wave of Choju Giga beasts, and both Kumo ninja began slashing and charging their blades with electricity to destroy the beasts. Hinata and Sakura ran towards them. Both Kumo ninja were forced fully back onto the dry land as Tsunade's apprentice and the Hyuga heiress leaped into the air and smashed her fist onto the ground, fracturing it and making the Kumo ninja fall off their feet. Finally, Hinata landed and got into a Jaiken stance. Aki Sanjuni Sho, 8 trigrams 32 palms. Hinata called out, striking both their attackers 32 times, sealing their chakra and sending them flying back. Sakura walked forward, lifting up the boy. Okay, now what the hell has Sasuke done? Naruto put him in our bingo books and declared him a missing ninja. The boy groaned. He's part of Akatsuki, took our master. Sakura's eyes widened and she dropped the boy. That between. Itachi was part of Akatsuki with Sasuke. Like hell we know. The girl growled, slamming her sword to the ground to push herself up. All we know is Hetokar Master Killer B. We don't even know if he's alive or dead. Sakura breathed in, looking at Hinata and Sai. She squeezed her hand into a fist. If you wanted to know about Sasuke, you didn't have to attack us, she said after a moment. Y'all really tell us? The boy asked, picking himself up. The name's Amoy, by the way. And I'm Karudam, you hit hard, Carrie said, groaning, and she looked at Hinata, who was starting to shrink away. You too, Hyuga. We don't know fully about Sasuke's powers, Sakura said after a moment, and Amoy and Carrie looked at her. The last time I saw him he was extremely fast, covering a large amount of ground in a short amount of time, and had used a new Chidori variant called it the Nagashi. He also has the cursed seal, wields a sword, as the Chidori, is very skilled with his Sharingan and uses katans and probably uses snakes since Orochimaru trained him. If his powers changed since then, I wouldn't know. Harry nodded as Amway took notes. Is B-Chance your master a Jinchuriki? Hinata asked after a moment. Yes. He's the Jinchuriki of the eight-tailed ox, Carrie said. He taught us everything he knew. Then you should focus on saving him instead of going after Sasuke, Sakura said, and they looked at her. There's still a chance that he's alive. Akatsuki wants the tailed beasts, though it takes time to seal them. You mean? Amoy whispered and Sakura nodded. Sasuke is our responsibility, Sakura said and looked at him. We'll help you save your master. Land of Iron. Back in the Land of Iron, Naruto, Kakashi, and Neji were arriving in fortress where the summit was being held. A middle-aged man with bandages wrapped around his forehead was greeting them, wearing a formal kimono and two swords on his hip. He was the most powerful samurai in the Land of Iron, the equivalent of a Kage High General Mifune. Greetings, Mifune started, and he looked at Naruto. Are you the new Hokage? What happened to Tsunade-hime? Yes, I am Akatsuki's leader. Pain attacked the village, putting Tsunade-sama into a coma, Naruto replied, breathing out. I've been appointed as the rokudaime Hokage until she awakens. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Mifune nodded. I see, welcome then Naruto Dono. Naruto nodded and the three walked in. Up in the rafters, Sasuke's group was watching. The five of them had made their way in past the samurai sentries without being detected. Sasuke's eyes had turned into the Sharingan as he glared down at his old teammate and sensei. Karen's mouth was opened in shock, feeling the young Hokage's chakra levels. Amazing, these are unreal, Karen thought, and she reached out to check the chakra levels of the other cages. Kamathi are all so huge. She glanced at Sasuke, who was now squeezing the railing. The last of the Uchiha was barely controlling his anger as he looked down at his old comrade and Kakashi. Both of them living in ignorance of Itachi's sacrifice at Urtsukum. In the meeting room, Naruto placed his hat down at the seat reserved for the Hokage as Kakashi and Neji went into the bodyguard room. Gaara looked up at him in slight surprise. Naruto, I didn't expect to see you here. I kind of just got appointed as Hokage in Tsunade-sama's absence, Gaara, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head. He looked around to the other cages. But was looking at him, trying to judge what type of character the young Hokage was. Mei's eyes had widened seeing Naruto, and a slight smirk appeared on her face. Inoki however was frowning, looking at the young Hokage. He looks too much like the yellow flash, Inoki thought, looking at the young Hokage. Put your hats on the table, I will be your moderator. My name is Mifune, Mifune said. The meeting will now begin. I'll go first, please listen up, Gaara said, folding his hands under his chin. The makeup of the 5 cages sure has changed. You must be something to have become Kazekage at your age, Inoki started, looking at Naruto. And you Hokage. Kazekage, your father must have taught you right, but apparently he forgot to instill manners in you. I guess that's why I'm Kazekage, Gaara said calmly, and Inoki growled, cheeky brat. Tsuchikage Dono, please stop interrupting. Kazekage Dono, please continue, Mei said respectfully. I am a former Jinchuriki, Gaara glanced at Naruto. Akatsuki captured me and killed me to extract my beast. If not for Chiyoba-sama, I'd still be dead. That's why I believe Akatsuki is extremely dangerous. I can more than confirm that. Like Gaara Jinchuriki, Naruto said after Gaara gave him the nod. Konoha has fought with Akatsuki the most out of the 5 great nations. Tsunade-sama created the Nijushatai to combat them. Sarutobi Asuma fell to Hiden and Kakuzu, and Jiraiya-sama himself fell to the Akatsuki leader Pain. He then closed his eyes. Just a few days ago, Pain attacked the village and reduced it to a crater. The cages, even A's eyes widened. Pain destroyed the village all on his own. Inoki asked incredulously. Yes, he used a powerful jutsu to do so. He was looking for me, and he had to preserve his secret. Using the technique, Shinra Tensei, Naruto said. I arrived after the great Toad Sage Shima raised the alarm and engaged Pain. He used a jutsu to control 6 bodies, all of which had powerful abilities. With help from Kitsaya, Gamabunta, Gamahiro, Gamaken, Fukasaku and Shima, I was able to destroy 5 out of 6 Bodhisattva. The primary body regained its power. I lost, and then in my anger after Pain nearly killed someone I cared about, I was forced to use my Bijutsu Kyuubi. I went to 6 tails and forced Pain's primary body to retreat, and then as I was about to lose again after Pain bound my body to technique that actually created a small mountain, I went 8 tails, but before I could break the seal, the Yondaime Hokage himself appeared in my mind as a fail-safe. The Yondaime Hokage Dono designed the seal to do that. I asked Naruto, who nodded. Yes, he repaired my seal and told me that Pain wasn't the true leader. It was a man in a mask who attacked Konoha 16 years ago with Kyuubi, Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara? That's reaching, boy, Inoki said, looking at him. Madara died long before your time, I should know, I fought him when I was young. Your Shadaime killed him. It's hard to believe, I know, Naruto said, and he closed his eyes. But Madara is alive and well and is behind Akatsuki and the attack on Konoha 16 years ago. There may be some truth to that, Mei said. Akatsuki was partially formed in Kurigakure, possibly by Yagura, the Yondaime Mizukage. Ao, the leader of our Hunter Nin Corps, had found out that Yagura was under a Sharingan Genjutsu. Mei looked at Gaara, who looked to have something to say. With Naruto's elaboration, I feel the need to tell more of my experience with Akatsuki. My people requested aid from many countries, only Tsunade-sama answered. Though at this point, with so many Jinchuriki captured, it'd be too late to call for aid. Humph, if a country had its Jinchuriki captured, it has no business giving orders. It's an embarrassment. You should have tried to recover it in secret. Naruto interrupted, grasping the table angrily. Is that what you call us? Just did a thing. Is that how you regarded the 2 Jinchuriki that were in your village? Now listen here, boy. No, you listen, old man, Naruto said, cutting him off. It's true, the only reason why the countries lost their Jinchuriki is because of archaic attitudes like that. We're not weapons. We're not things. We're people. It seems only Konoha, Suna, and Kumo understand that, if I'm correct. Inoki bore his teeth at that, and A gave a nod. The reason why I called this meeting is due to my brother's abduction. Frankly, the only 2 I trust now are the young Hokage here and the young Kazekage, since they understand what my brother went through, I said, shooting a look at Inoki. You used Akatsuki many times. Yes, for a village doing disarmament, a cheap mercenary force was needed. We haven't inflated our shinobi force in times of peace like you did, Reikage Dono, Inoki retorted, and A's eyes narrowed. I understand why you wouldn't trust Kurigakure, Reikage Dono, Mei interjected. But we didn't use Akatsuki and have sent hunter nins after them. We even lost an entire group of hunter nins to Akatsuki, who had managed to talk to our former Jinchuriki of the 6 tails, Utakata. I see, A said, calming down slightly. Ah, I wasn't the only Kage to use Akatsuki, Inoki said, and he looked at Gaara. Your father used them quite extensively. What? Gaara asked, his eyes narrowing. With all the budget cuts that Suna received back then, you're really surprised. Just because the Biju were stolen, there is no reason to be afraid, Mei said calmly, and they looked at her. It takes time and knowledge to learn to control them. If Madara is truly part of Akatsuki, that is no longer true. He can control the Biju like their pets, just like Hashirama, your former Mizukage, and Killer Bee, Inoki said. So the danger is still there. Everyone, calm down, Mifune said calmly before A could explode. It's clear now that what needs to be done. A united front must be presented against Akatsuki. I propose the 5 great nations ally for this purpose. An alliance of 5 of the great nations. Inoki asked incredulously. Such a thing hasn't been seen ever. It is clear that smaller alliances between the nations and the villages by themselves can't face Akatsuki alone, Mifune said calmly. The only answer is an alliance. I agree, Naruto said, and all of the Kages looked at him. We can't afford to do this on our own anymore. Too many of our people have died. Very well then, but who should lead the alliance? Inoki asked, grating his teeth at Naruto softly. Yes, that is the question, Mifune said, looking at the 5 Kages that were present. The Reikage is too emotional to make an effective leader of the entire alliance, the Hokage and Kazekage are too young, there are trust issues between the Mizukage and the rest of the villages, and Tsuchikage is frankly too old and has used Akatsuki in the past. At first glance, none of you are fit to be leader. However, Mifune glanced at all the Kages and settled on Naruto. Konoha has fought Akatsuki the longest and has had the most Akatsuki kills and discovered the 2 leaders of the organization. For that reason, I believe the young Hokage and Konoha should lead the alliance. Seconded, Gaara said. Heard, A said, surprising them all. If Konoha can help catch my brother's kidnapper or save him, I'll gladly support them as leaders in this endeavor. Naruto blinked. Whoa, slow down please, he said, shaking his head. I don't think I can lead everyone. I don't even have that much experience. Finally, you're talking sense, boy, Inoki said, smirking as Naruto glared at him. If either of these 2 pups lead the proposed alliance, it'll be doomed. However, before he could continue, something came out of the center of the room. It looked like a Venus flytrap, and when it opened, a pure white humanoid thing with a yellow eye appeared, and wrapped around its lower body was an Akatsuki robe. Sasuke's here. He's all waiting for you. Naruto's eyes widened when the Akatsuki in front of him declared that. The freaky white body and yellow-eyed thing looked around at them, its jagged teeth showing for everyone. He gave a psychotic grin. Well, come on, let's go get Sasuke. Zetsu announced, grinning. What? Ed demanded, his anger reaching the boiling point it was prior to the meeting. The bodyguards rushed into the room when they heard Zetsu's arrival, and both Kankuro's and Tamari's eyes had widened. Chijiro and Ao conversed quietly, both shocked as well. Tamari gasped, raising her hand. Sasuke? Gaara asked, his eyebrow raising. What's he doing here? Kankuro snarled. The one with the Sharingan, Mei said softly, contemplating this. One of the people who killed Zabuza? Ao asked aloud. Who's he? Akatsuki asked, looking at Zetsu. A member of Akatsuki, I'm pretty sure of it, Inoki replied, grabbing his hat. Wait, Sasuke's here? Naruto demanded before the eight tore through the table at lightning speeds, moving faster than even Kakashi, and grasped the plant like Zetsu's neck. Where is Uchiha Sasuke? Answer me. It demanded, squeezing Zetsu's neck. He's really fast. Zetsu thought fearfully. If you don't answer me, I won't go easy on you, warned, squeezing his hand into a fist. Often I'll give you a hint, Zetsu attempted, but the Raikage snapped his neck in his anger. Immediately, Neji activated his Byakugan, scanning the entire compound. He found where Sasuke was and gave a signal for Kakashi to follow. Kakashi whispered to Naruto. How long do you need to get into that sage mode of yours? 5 minutes, Neji found him already. Naruto whispered as Mei yelled at the Raikage that they could have used Zetsu for information. We'll find him and hold him off until you arrive, Naruto. Naruto nodded, calming himself as he kept seated and he began to stay perfectly still. Mifune sent an all-points bulletin throughout the fortress to search and apprehend Sasuke and any of his compatriots, and Kakashi and Neji slipped out of the room with the Hyuga prodigy leading the way. He smashed his way through the wall in the opposite direction, and Darui apologized for it before following Shai and the Raikage. In the lower levels of the fortress, Team Hawk was watching as the samurai began to scramble around. Karen gasped when she began sensing all the samurai in the tower fortress start moving. What is it, Karen? Sujetsu asked, his hand on the decapitating carving knife. The samurai, they're starting to move. They seem to be looking for us. Karen replied, and her eyes widened. And I sensed the 2 bodyguards that came with the Hokage coming this way too. Zetsu sold us out, Jugo said as Sasuke's eyes narrowed, his black eyes changing to the Sharingan. A short ways away, a samurai was checking behind the pillars when he saw the telltale Akatsuki robe Sasuke wearing. Acting quickly, he pulled out one of his special katanas and began his charge. However, before he even made it around his pillar, Sasuke had vanished and reappeared behind the samurai and slammed the Chidori through his back, killing him. It's no use, there are too many. Karen said from the new hiding spot in the rafters. They'll capture us for sure. That bastard Zetsu'll get him for this, Sujetsu snarled, grasping the knife. Just a few short seconds later, Sasuke was surrounded by nearly 30 samurai. He grasped his shakudo with his blood-covered hand as the armored soldiers grasped their own blades, pulling them out. Attack! The leader of the samurai team ordered, yanking out their short swords. All the samurai in the room began to channel chakra into their blades, making them extend to a variety of chakra axes, swords, and other weapons. Samurai can use chakra too. Karen whispered, watching. I had no idea they could use chakra like that, Sujetsu said, watching. Sasuke, what are you doing? Hide. Karen yelled as Sasuke's chakra took a spike. I'm really pissed off right now, Sasuke said, his Sharingan looking at the enemy samurai. Come, I won't go easy on you. Neither will us. The samurai commander announced, launching an X-shaped chakra blade at Sasuke as the others launched a buzzsaw-shaped one and other shaped blades of chakra at him. Charging lightning chakra through his shakudo, Sasuke drew his blade vertically up and he cut through the samurai's attacks with ease. The samurai gasped that he deflected it, and just as Sasuke began his charge, Hakikusho, 8 trigram's empty palm, was hurt and Sasuke was hit by a vacuum blast of air and he was sent flying sideways. Sasuke then looked up to see the Hyuga prodigy there, his Byakugan on. Hyuga Neji. Uchiha Sasuke, it's been 3 years, though your chakra is still as black as I saw it during the Forest of Death, Neji said, walking calmly toward Sasuke. That's one of the Hokage's bodyguards, where's the other? Sujetsu gasped. Behind you, I recognize that sword, a voice said from behind them, and Sujetsu, Karen and Jugo jumped slightly and then looked to see Hada Kakashi behind them. Jugo of the scales I recognize, but not you two. Samurai-san, file out, you can't handle this opponent, Neji said as he and Sasuke glared at each other. He's Konoha's problem, we'll deal with him. The samurai reluctantly nodded and fled as Neji and Sasuke squared off on each other. Jugo and Sujetsu attacked Kakashi at the same time and he lifted his headband up to reveal the Sharingan and he dodged both of their attacks, but Jugo's cursed seal fist smashed the rafter into pieces. At the same time, Sasuke ran forward at Neji, his Chidori Kusanagi charged up. The Hyuga prodigy had settled into Jaiken stance and just as the Uchiha slashed at him, he put up a partial Hikesho Katen to block the blade and Sasuke was unable to complete the slash. Neji then spun rapidly, yelling Katen to throw Sasuke back. Gritting his teeth as he was thrown back, Sasuke took a deep breath. Katen. Kakakyu no Jutsu, fire release. Great fireball technique. To blow a massive fireball at Neji who did his own seals. Suiton. Mizurappa, water release. Violent water wave. Neji called out, blowing out a massive stream of water at the fireball, and the 2 attacks cancelled out each other. Neji then saw multiple Chidori Senbon being launched at him and he dodged each of them by mere millimeters. Sasuke roared, charging up the Chidori, and he took off towards the Hyuga prodigy at insane speeds. Neji waited till the last moment, and faster than Sasuke could see, the Hyuga prodigy slammed his fingers into the Tenkatsu in his arms. Just as the Chidori touched Neji, it fizzled out, making it a simple palm strike. Sasuke leaped back, snarling. "So you closed my Tenkatsu to save yourself, huh? Give up, Sasuke. Your inexperience with Jaiken means I can beat you here," Neji told him, settling into a deep Jaiken stance. He could see Sasuke's entire Tenkatsu system, including those he closed off. Sasuke snarled, and his anger reopened the Tenkatsu in his arms. "I'm going to kill you, you wide-eyed bastard. You Hyugas have always been inferior to the Uchiha." With that, Sasuke charged at Neji and launched a punch at him, which the Hyuga prodigy sidestepped. The two engaged in a flurry of taijutsu. However, Sasuke felt himself being overwhelmed by Neji's mastery of Jaiken, his arms and chest being sealed by the Hyuga prodigy's strikes. The Uchiha was sent flying back by another Kaiten, and he roared in rage. Sasuke's Sharingan morphed to the Mangekyo Sharingan, the 6-pointed stars in his eyes focusing on Neji. His left eye then began to bleed and saw the surge of chakra in the Uchiha's eyes. "Amaterasu!" he roared, and the black flames of Amaterasu in a fireball form shot at the Hyuga. Acting quickly, Neji activated his strongest defense. Hakesho Kaiten, 8 trigrams super heavenly spin. The blue sphere of chakra surrounded the Hyuga prodigy's body as he began spinning rapidly, and he made a double layer of the Kaiten. The Amaterasu impacted the swirling sphere of chakra and were deflected by the rapidly spinning chakra of the Kaiten. However, the first layer was burned off, but the second layer closer to Neji's body was untouched. As he finished spinning, he launched a Haki Kusho, 8 trigrams empty palm, at Sasuke, the attack slamming into his face. Neji panted, glaring at Sasuke, who growled angrily, blood now dripping from his lip. "The Mangekyo Sharingan, when did he get that?" Neji thought, keeping his guard as he looked at Sasuke. "Need to keep on my guard, don't know if I can beat him now." At the same time, Kakashi had chased Sujetsu, Jugo, and Karen into a small room that was now covered in a mist. The copy ninja frowned, looking around. His Sharingan could only see chakra, a similar impairment he had when he faced Tsubusa on the Great Naruto Bridge. He then dodged the decapitating carving knife by mere centimeters, but Jugo's heavy cursed seal fist slammed into him, sending him crashing back. Flipping to his feet, he began doing the seals and took a deep breath, launching a Gakakyu no Jutsu from his mouth to evaporate the mist. Kakashi then blocked and dodged Sujetsu's strikes and lifted his hand, it charging with lightning. "Akiri Akami, lightning cutter wolf," he yelled, bringing his hand down as he shaped a wolf made out of lightning that began chasing after Sujetsu, homing in on him. "Crap." Sujetsu yelled, running quickly as the lightning wolf leaped at him and then crashed into him, and he gave a loud cry as his body was electrocuted. He dropped to his knees, managing to channel most of the lightning through the decapitating carving knife, and he panted. "Oh, it really smarts." Hugo's arm then grabbed Sujetsu from the door, yanking him back. There was Karen, holding a kunai that had a whole assortment of explosive tags on it. She grinned, waving her finger like she was scolding him. "Sorry Haddock-san, you lose." Karen yelled as she tossed the kunai with the explosive tags on it as she, Sujetsu, and Jugo began running back towards Neji and Sasuke's fighting area. Kakashi's eyes widened. Crap, he ducked the kunai, and it slammed into the wall as the explosive tags ignited. He flew through the seals. Doten. Shinju's Anshu no Jutsu, Earth Release. Double suicide decapitation technique. He dove into the ground just as the entire room was engulfed in a huge explosion that blew the roof off, as well as blew a hole into the other rooms in the surrounding area. "Great plan, Karen, I guess you've got some uses," Sujetsu said as they ran as fast as they could. "Well, I knew we couldn't face him head on, given he's the legendary copy ninja after all," Karen said with a grin, and she adjusted her glasses. "Nice for a split-of-the-moment plan, wasn't it?" Hugo nodded. "Yes." Just then, the ground underneath them splintered and Kakashi leaped out, launching a kick at Sujetsu, and his head exploded into a shower of water, and he punched Jugo into Karen, slamming them both into the wall. "You made a pretty good plan, though you should have kept the mist up," Kakashi said with a grin as Sujetsu reformed and Jugo helped Karen up, who was groaning. At that moment, before Neji and Sasuke could continue fighting, the wall exploded and there stood the Raikage, as well as his bodyguards Dari and Shai. "Never thought I'd be happy to see this bastard," Neji thought, panting as he looked today. "Stand aside, Hyuga, Sasuke is my target," a commanded, snarling at Sasuke, who glared back, his eyes having morphed back to the normal Sharingan. "Very well," Neji said, powering his Byakugan off. It tore his Raikage cloak off, lightning enveloping his body into a cloak. Sasuke glared at the Raikage, the blood still leaking from his eye and lip, though his resolve was still great. His Akatsuki robes fluttered in the breeze created by A's Raiten no Yoroi, lightning release armor, flared in challenge to his Sharingan. To be continued. Chapter 4. Epic rematch, Naruto and Sasuke clash. Land of Iron. Naruto had created 3 bushions to continue gathering natural energy as he entered Sage mode. Mei, Gaara and Inoki watched as he kept perfectly still for a few minutes, breathing out slowly, not knowing he was channeling natural energy into his body and balancing it. He fought to remain calm, was going to confront Sasuke here and know and see if he was truly beyond saving. He could have rushed down, leaving his clones to gather natural energy, but he needed to get his thoughts in order first, hence why he was entering Sage mode the standard way. This would also give him 20 full minutes in Sage mode with the 3 other clones, just in case he needed it. Let's see how much you've changed, Sasuke, Naruto thought, pulling more natural energy into his body, and if one could see natural energy, there would be an aura around him the size of the entire room. Then I'll conclusively know my answer. Ah, what's that boy doing? Inoki asked to his bodyguards. Just sitting there as stiff as a board. I don't know, or why those clones of his are doing the same, Akatsuki said as Kuritsuchi put her hand on her chin, thinking. Tsuchikage-sama, should I go and back up Reikage-sama and the Konohanins against Sasuke? I want to see the person who killed Madara and Ai, see if he really is that good. Inoki nodded. Yes, let's see this new Akatsuki, see if he measures up to those we know before. Kuritsuchi nodded, and in a puff of smoke, she vanished in a body flicker technique. Gaara looked over to Naruto, wondering what the hell he was doing just sitting there. Below them, Sasuke was rushing Dari, and Shai. His Akatsuki cloak flapped around his body as he ran forward, his shakudo in his hand. Acting quickly, Dari flew through the seals. Suiton. Sujinheki, water release. Water encampment wall, Dari said calmly, and water burst out of his mouth, slamming into Sasuke before he could connect. He then did more seals, and his hands charged up with lightning. Raiden. Kanjihika, lightning release. Wave of inspiration. Eri shot a blast of lightning through the water, supercharging it as it hit Sasuke. The Uchiha cried out in pain as his body was electrocuted and was sent flying away. Sasuke charged the lightning that was coursing through his body into his sword and slammed it into the ground, and the electricity traveled out of his body. Glaring at Dari with the Sharingan, he willed himself to stand up despite the paralysis after effect that was in his body from the attack. Boss, it appears our intelligence was correct, looks like it's lightning based, Dari said, separating his hands as A's Raiden no Yoroi, lightning release armor, burst another level onto his body. The air was literally crackling and popping from the heat of the electricity swirling around A's body. He can use fire too. He'll probably follow it up with a Kaiten, Shai said, remembering the information they initially got about Sasuke when Samui, Amoy, and Kari reported in. It was the reason why the Reikage's entourage was late to the summit. Not only that, they had information of Akatsuki's operatives, like Uchiha Itachi, Hoshigaki Kisame, Madara, Sasori, Haiden and Kakuzu, due to the Sannin Jiraiya, raising the alarm on their danger to the Reikage, a year before Akatsuki began to gather Jinchuriki again. Dari, be ready with another Suiton. Right, Dari said as Karen, Sujetsu and Jugo looked over, taking their eyes off of Kakashi and Niji. Sounds like they must have gotten intel on Sasuke from Konoha, Sujetsu said, glancing at the 2 Konoha ninjas in front of them. Hey, in the middle, is that? Karen asked, looking at the Reikage. Yugo made his hand into an axe, dashing forward to cover Sasuke. Niji and Kakashi attempted to stop him, but he avoided their attacks. Skidding to a halt, he was behind the last Uchiha, ready to cover him. These are Kumagakure's Jonins, the middle one is the Reikage, this won't be easy, Jugo stated, preparing himself. I need backup, we were attacked by Sasuke, a single samurai reported, radioing the others. Shai then flew through the seals, and his body began glowing. Jugo stepped back, but Sasuke stood firm. Raijin Rikachu, lightning illusion. Flash of lightning pillar. Shai yelled, sending a bright flash throughout the entire room, blinding everyone ahead of him in range. Is he trying to blind us? Jugo thought, not having a Dojutsu that could see through the illusion, he then saw A rushing at Sasuke who didn't move. The Reikage's fist smashed down at Sasuke, seemingly smashing him into the ground. Sasuke. Jugo called out. Stand firm, Jugo, this is a Jinjutsu, Sasuke said calmly, his Sharingan seeing through it all. Not bad, Sharingan, Shai thought. You may have seen through the Jinjutsu, but it's too late. A roared, appearing in front of Sasuke as Dari appeared behind his back. The Reikage's lightning armor thundered as he rose his hand up to deliver a killing blow, and Dari lifted his thick sword up at Sasuke's back. Reacting quickly, Sujetsu and Karen slipped by Niji and ran toward Sasuke. Karen tossed 2 kunai with explosive tags at Dari and the Reikage, making them break off their attack on Sasuke. A, using his speed, instantly came back for another attack on the Uchiha as he began to rise to his feet, but Sujetsu arrived in time to block the heavy gauntlet with his sword. Crap, lightning, Sujetsu thought, struggling to keep the Reikage's massive gauntlet from smashing Sasuke. Then the decapitating carving knife began to crack and A's fist slashed right through as Sujetsu's arms were ripped off. Even though he was made of water, it hurt like hell. Sasuke and Sujetsu were sent skidding back as the water ninja's arms reformed. Damn it, he smashed my sword. Yugo's eyes bugged out, his bloodlust overtaking him as his body changed, becoming sleeker and turned gray in color. Wing-like growths appeared on his forearms as his eyes turned black, and on his back were 6 tubes now that gushed chakra. He breathed out a bit of smoke made of chakra and gave an evil grin at the Raikage. Sasuke then gave a nod which he sensed, and he ran towards A at full speed. Ha 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 ha. I'll kill ya. Jugo roared, rushing towards the Raikage. Wow, his personality's changed, Dari said as he watched. And his chakra levels have gone off the charts. Stay on your guard. Shai warned as Neji focused his Byakugan on Jugo. The high increase of power and decrease of intelligence he focused on the Raikage. Though his chakra levels are as high as a Biju's. Just try it. A roared in response, turning fully towards Jugo. His body flickered and there was a thunderclap as he appeared in front of Jugo. The bipolar fighter tried to block by growing a multi-layered shield from his wrists. He effortlessly punched through Jugo's defense, the lightning chakra adding to the penetration, and he slammed Jugo through multiple pillars until he smashed into the last one, pinning him. One down, A said as Sasuke focused his Sharingan on him. Your Sharingan won't work on me. Damn, I can't even see him. Jugo laughed loudly, still pinned to the pillar by the Raikage, his Raiten no Yori raging around him. The cursed seal's source then created many chakra cannons, which extended all out of his sides and shoulders. They began to glow as chakra was funneled to them. Die. Jugo roared, firing a massive blast of chakra at A, seemingly hitting him. Neji, Shai and Dari seemed to wait, unsurprised or not very much concerned, which was strange, since the Raikage looked like he got vaporized. Yes. I got. Before Jugo could even finish his sentence, A's elbow smashed into his head. Using his Raiten no Yoroi, combined with the Shunshin no Jutsu, his speed increased greatly, it was incredibly hard to see. He could even dodge point-blank attacks like Jugo used. Jugo himself smashed into a nearby wall, which cratered around him, leaving an imprint before he fell to the ground, unconscious. In the distraction, Sasuke had appeared right in front of Shai and cast him under a powerful Sharingan Jinjutsu. Shai's eyes widened, it was like he was grabbed by a demonic figure which began sucking the life out of him. Realizing it was Jinjutsu, he broke it as the Uchiha dodged a kick from Kakashi. The copy ninjas and Sasuke's eyes locked and the Uchiha back flipped out of the way when Kakashi tried to hit him with a Rakiri. Also, Dari and Sujetsu got into a swords battle, Sujetsu's broken blade smashing into the Cloud Ninja's weird flat-head blade. Dari charged electricity through his blade, clashing with a broken decapitating carving knife as Karen took cover. He straightened himself out as Sasuke came at him in an attack. Charging the Chidori through his Shikudo, making the Chidori Katana, he slashed at the Raikage's back. However, his sword was deflected by the Raiten no Yoroi and the sword flew out of Sasuke's hand and he landed on his feet. Charging up another Chidori, Sasuke roared as the lightning surrounded his hand, nearly achieving the power of the Rakiri. He roared, his own lightning armor bursting as both moved faster than the eye could see. Only Karen, Neji and Kakashi could even track them due to the latter two's sensory abilities and due to Kakashi's Sharingan. Like a corkscrew, the copy ninja's Sharingan morphed to his Mangekyo form to get ready. Both Sasuke and A clashed. Elbow. The Raikage roared, shoving his elbow forward at lightning speed. Chidori. Sasuke roared, the blaring sound of flapping birds filling the hall. With his Sharingan, Sasuke was able to predict the linear movement of A's strike and he ducked and shoved the Chidori forward, impacting the Raiten no Yoroi. However, the lightning armor discharged an opposing voltage to the Chidori, sending off a massive electrical field which formed sphere-like blast that cut through the ground and the corner of the wall, and electricity sparked around them continuing to cut away at the wall and floor. Sasuke focused his Sharingan, and his eyes widened slightly, only the very tip of his fingertips penetrated the Raikage's skin. It was just a flesh wound. He then grabbed Sasuke's waist in a vice-like grip and the last Uchiha struggled. Using Raiten to increase an attack's power and penetration. That's how Kakashi's move. To be able to touch me even when I'm clad in my Raiten no Yoroi, it's really something. Damn, is there any hope? Sujetsu snarled, clashing with Dari, their blades slashing at each other in a fierce combat. Nope, Sasuke is as good as dead, Dari replied, parrying Sujetsu's slash away easily. Sasuke. Karen yelled as A's chakra level spiked again and he lifted Sasuke up by his waist. Rager Bomu, Liger Bomb. He roared, slamming Sasuke down back first into the ground. The force of the Rager Bomu tore up the ground all around them, splintering it into a circular fashion as both Sasuke and A sank into the ground from the impact. The blow shook the entire room, making all the ninja in the room leap out of the way to find better footing. Neji's eyes were wide, the crater of the Rager Bomu was at least 8 meters deep and 12 meters wide. Amazing, Neji thought, finding his footing, and then he saw something around Sasuke's body skeleton. Sasuke had managed to activate his Mangekyo Sharingan in time, putting up Susanuo's ribcage around him to take most of the blow of the Rager Bomu. His robe had managed to take a rip, and a trickle of blood flowed down his lip from the force of the impact. A's eyes widened in a little shock, but two of the Susanuo's ribs then cracked and broke. The Susanoo began to glow with a purple aura, and the Raikage let go and jumped back, and Sasuke did as well, the full ribcage around his body as he returned to his feet. A skeletal arm balanced him as Sasuke panted, and A looked right at him. There was a six-pointed star in Sasuke's eyes that was completely red and surrounded by darkness, and in the middle was a black pupil. The Uchiha was starting to suffer the effects of exhaustion, and his entire body hurt, and even though part of his robe was ripped, it was still on his body. Is that the Mangekyo Sharingan? A thought, and he powered up again, entering a version 2 of his Raiten no Yoroi. His platinum blonde hair which seemed to stick to his head then began standing up, and the lightning aura around him expanded. His chakra levels also skyrocketed. Eri had gone to help Shai and lifted him up by his shoulders. No one's ever been able to survive that before. Just what the hell is he anyway? Derry asked in slight amazement. He beat me with a genjutsu. He still can't really move every once in a while. You'll find a genius like that, Shai said, breathing out as the samurai reinforcements began arriving. So that's Sasuke's Mangekyo, Kakashi thought as the Kumo Jonin looked on in amazement, muttering about those eyes that Sasuke had at that moment. Sujetsu was now pinned to his electrified sword to a wall, watching on. Am I too weak against Raitens? I'm paralyzed and I can't even liquefy properly. Aaron's eyes were widened in shock. The Raikage's chakra is still growing. These are Biju levels. Sasuke's Amaterasu eye then started bleeding. Amaterasu. He yelled, a fireball of black flames appearing on then his body vanished, leaving an after image. A samurai behind the Raikage was then ignited by the Amaterasu, his armor shielding him as he cried out in fright. Sasuke reacted in shock. The Amaterasu had been avoided. This was unprecedented. The black flames were supposed to be unavoidable. And yet Raikage had dodged them like he was just doing a simple side step. Put out the flames. One of the samurai yelled, running forward, and he had to take a step back from the heat. These are no ordinary flames, step back. One of the other samurai ordered. The Amaterasu ignites whatever he's looking at. This is Shai thought, watching. He reappeared behind Sasuke, roaring. Rijaku Suhei, lightning oppression horizontal. At that, the Uchiha ignited the Amaterasu around his Susanoo, forming a shield which stopped the Raikage's attack. At that very same moment, in the main meeting room, Naruto's eyes opened as he finished entering Sage mode. He stood up as Gaara did too. If you're going to face Sasuke, we're going to, Gaara said, and Naruto nodded. Thanks. Let's go. With that, Naruto ran out into the hallway, shortly followed by Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro, who was eager to test out his new toy. Mei stood up, looking at her bodyguards. Ow, activate your Byakugan and monitor the battle. If Sasuke should come up here, I want to be ready, Mei ordered, and Ao nodded, and behind his eye patch, his Byakugan activated. Chijuro, better get ready to unleash the Hirameki. Hi, Mizukage-sama. Chijuro said, yanking the bandages off his sword, and the shape of a hammer appeared. If Sasuke attacks, I will protect Mizukage-sama. Back in the battle, Karen looked up to see the black flames of Amaterasu around Sasuke Susanoo, and she grinned. A shield of Amaterasu. Good thinking. The Raikage is impossibly fast, but this way Sasuke is protected even if he can't follow the Raikage's movements. Now the Raikage won't be able to attack him. He can control the black flames. Even changing their shape. Is he more skilled with this technique than Itachi? Shai thought as Sasuke glanced back at A. Don't underestimate me. A roared, moving forward with his attack. At that very moment, Kakashi activated his Kamui, and he managed to at least rob the side of Sasuke Susanoo that was facing the Raikage of its black hole, as the Raikage's palm smashed through the ribs like they were twigs. Where did the flames go? And the Raikage was attacking anyway. Karen thought as Kakashi put his hand onto his eye, dropping to one knee. What happened to the flames in that area? Shai asked in amazement. I think we have Kakashi to thank for that. Raikage-sama would have lost his arm otherwise, Derry said, smirking at Kakashi, who gave him thumbs up. Sasuke crashed to the ground with a sickening crunch, his Susanoo barely keeping up as the Raikage followed up by jumping into the air, holding his heel up high for his finisher. It was at that moment that the ceiling exploded. Naruto and Gaara dropped down with Temari and Kankuro. In a desperate attempt to save himself, Sasuke began manipulating the remaining flames around his Susanoo shield. Jirichin Darapu, guillotine drop. He roared as Sasuke shaped the flames into a non-corporeal shield and then shaped them into spikes. Benton. Kagetsuchi, blaze release. Kagetsuchi added Tool Earth Lord, Sasuke roared. If he was going to die, he was taking the Raikage's leg with him. He's still trying to fight. Shai thought, and then a wave of sand shot over, and before either attack could strike, both Sasuke and A's attacks were blocked by a shield of sand. Sand? I thought. What? Sasuke thought in shock, seeing the shield above him. It wasn't being burned through by the Amaterasu in the slightest. Everyone looked back to see Naruto and Gaara standing there. The Kazukige's gourd had popped open and sand was swirling out. His absolute defense was still as fast and powerful as always. The fact he could even intercept both the Kagetsuchi and Ai's Jirichin Darapu was amazing. Naruto was looking at Sasuke as his black flames over him faded, but the Susanoo stayed. Karen, not caring about her own safety, ran over to Sasuke as the Raikage leaped back to his men. At the desert and Sasuke's eyes narrowed at Naruto, who was standing there in sage mode. Naruto, he may be even stronger than you, Sasuke. Zetsu had said to him, and his anger began growing as Karen arrived at his side. Sasuke, bite me quick. Karen yelled, rolling up her sleeves as Sasuke bit into her arm, and she gasped. Healing chakra surged through Sasuke's body, and he began to straighten up. The Kamitachi no Jutsu, scythe weasel technique. Temari called out, sending a blast of wind which curled around from her fan, which went through the samurai's armor, which had been struck by Amaterasu, as chakra strings from Kankuro attached to certain points, and then he yanked the armor off, saving the samurai from the black flames. So these are the undying flames of Amaterasu, Kankuro said, keeping the flames away from him. Stand back, samurai. This is between ninjas, there's no need for you samurai to lose your lives over this, Gaara ordered gently, looking at Sasuke as he continued to heal his wounds from biting Karen. Sorry Kazuki-sama and Hokage-sama, a samurai said, lifting the man who was nearly incinerated up. What the hell is going on? Sujetsu said as Naruto stepped forward. Why did you interfere, Kazuki-age? If I don't like your answer, I won't let you off so easily. I roared, his Raiten no Yoroi sparking around his body. Preventing you from losing your leg, Raikage Dono, Gaara said, and Ai looked up. And saving your life if the flames were too intense. Not only that, Hokage Dono here has something to ask Sasuke. He frowned, but he crossed his arms. Fine. Naruto looked at Sasuke. Why are you doing this, Sasuke? Why the hell did you join Akatsuki? It doesn't make any sense. Sasuke actually gave a spiteful chuckle. Why am I doing this? You really want to know, Naruto? Hatred filled his eyes that had changed to the normal Sharingan. It is so I can wipe out every last one of you Konoha bastards, so the Uchiha name can be purified. What? Naruto asked, his eyes widened. This is vengeance. Severian, who profited from the Uchiha clan segregation and from the false peace Itachi sacrificed himself for. Sasuke said, his teeth bearing down in hatred. Everyone in Konoha will all die for spitting on Itachi's sacrifice and treating the Uchiha like dirt. That doesn't make any sense. The Uchiha clan was highly respected, everyone knows that. Hell, they had more power than even the Hyuga clan, Naruto said, and Sasuke frowned. You're not. Shut up, Sasuke snarled, and he took a step forward and threw his arm back, carelessly hitting Karen, who fell into the rocks, bumping her head and knocking her out. You'll be the first, Naruto will finish the job I started at the Valley of the End. Naruto watched, and his eyes narrowed. If you're going to do this, Sasuke, I'm going to stop you. Try it. Sasuke roared, dashing towards Naruto. The young Hokage met Sasuke's charge, and he dodged the punch that the Uchiha launched. Shifting into Kawazu Kumite, frog katas, and faster than Sasuke's Sharingan could see, he launched a powerful roundhouse kick at Sasuke. Barely reacting in time, Sasuke blocked with his fist but was sent flying back by the sheer force of the kick. In Sasuke's fist, 3 of the bones in his hand had shattered from the force of the kick and made him grimace in pain. Naruto leaped at him and he dodged another roundhouse and sidekick, but just barely before he threw a punch at the young Hokage, who blocked and sent out his own fist. Since it was a straight-on punch, Sasuke's Sharingan easily read and he moved his head to the side, and when he went to retort, he was suddenly sent flying by a force he couldn't see. What the hell? What hit me? Sasuke thought and barely landed on his feet when Naruto charged him again. He then flew through the seals and his hand ignited with a Chidori. Chidori. The Uchiha charged Naruto, the sound of 1,000 chirping birds filling the halls. Naruto created a clone and a Rasengan afterwards and met Sasuke's charge with his own. Chidori and Rasengan clashed, but since the young Hokage was in sage mode, Sasuke's hate-filled Chidori was completely overpowered and he was sent flying back in the resulting explosion. There's no way can't be stronger than me. Sasuke's eyes changed to the Mangekyo Sharingan and Susanoo's ribs wrapped around him protectively and he gave a roar of rage as he slammed into the wall. 2 of the ribs cracked and shattered from the force, but Sasuke was still conscious and he stood up. You have gotten very strong, Naruto, but this will be the same as last time. Naruto blinked in confusion as Kakashi leaped over to him. That's the Susanoo, Naruto. It's the 3rd of the Mangekyo Sharingan's powers. I see, Naruto said, biting his thumb as Sasuke's Susanoo continued to grow from his frustration. Kuchiwa's no Jutsu, summoning Jutsu. Slamming his palm down, there was a burst of smoke, and when it cleared, the 2 small 800-year-old toad sages, Fukasaku and Shima, were there. Shima seemed to be holding up an invisible plate and then she blinked, looking around. Naruto-chan. You better have a good reason for summoning me here during dinner time. I was making my famous caterpillar stir-fry. Shima yelled angrily, making Naruto wince. Ma, Naruto-chan wouldn't summon us in case he really needed us for something. You can finish cooking when we're finished here. Fukasaku chided his wife, who crossed her arms. Fine. Shima said as she looked up at Naruto. Why do you need us now? Naruto chuckled weakly and he pointed. I'm fighting my former teammate, Uchiha Sasuke. He has the Mangekyo Sharingan, I could use your help. Fukasaku regarded Sasuke as the Susanoo grew around him. The Mangekyo Sharingan, haven't seen one of those for nearly 60 years, Susanoo by the looks of it. Naruto blinked. You've fought someone with the Mangekyo Sharingan before. Yep, with one of the first human sages, he belonged to the Senju clan, Fukasaku said as the giant skeleton of Susanoo was fully formed. The skeleton was fully formed and there was a purple aura around it. Muscles also began growing around the Susanoo's arms and chest as one of the giant hands patted its stomach where Sasuke was, and Naruto and the sages looked at the Uchiha. I am going to crush you, Naruto. Sasuke snarled and Naruto crossed his fingers. You can try, Naruto said, creating 2 clones. At once, Sasuke made a charge as Naruto and his clones began running at Sasuke. The Uchiha's left eye started bleeding again and the Hokage and his clones began running in a crisscrossing fashion to throw off his aim. Sasuke caught one of the Narutos in the Amaterasu, making it cry in pain. One of the other Narutos grabbed it by his flame-free hand and then tossed it right at Sasuke. Sasuke's eyes widened as the burning clone impacted on his Susanoo and puffed away, the flames showering down on the Uchiha's shield. The Uchiha snarled and Naruto took the opportunity to transfer a Rasengan to the clone, and then the clone expanded the Rasengan into its giant form Senpo. Adama Rasengan. It was twice as large as Naruto was tall. The clone leaped at Sasuke, jamming the Sage Chakra-powered Adama Rasengan into the Susanoo's chest. The Uchiha grunted, being pushed back as the Senpo. Adama Rasengan ground into Susanoo's ribs, and they began to crack and splinter. Sasuke roared, and Susanoo's arm responded, smashing the clone away as the Adama Rasengan exploded and shook the entire fortress, gaining the attention of the other Kages. Naruto, his first use of Sage mode running out as the smoke began clearing, and Sasuke was still standing there, and his Susanoo was damaged, but still there. He grimaced, and the Uchiha put on a sadistic face as muscle fiber began coiling all around his Susanoo, forming the same face that Shai saw in the Genjutsu when then the skin appeared on the avatar of the God of Storm's form. You lose, Naruto, Sasuke said with an evil grin. With that, Sasuke launched 2 incredibly fast arrows at Naruto, who barely crossed his fingers in time to make a shield out of clones. The wall of clones took the attack as Naruto began running, Fukasaku and Shima entering the battle at that moment. The Toad Sage's cheek swelled, and the elder male toad blew out a blast of oil before doing the seals for a Futon, adding the wind to the oil, as the elder female toad blew out a stream of fire. Senpo. Gomen, Sage Art. Gomen. Fukasaku and Shima yelled, creating a massive wave of burning oil and sending it at Sasuke in his Susanoo. The Uchiha grimaced as the boiling oil crashed into his Susanoo, the shield keeping him from being burned, but he was completely submerged. He gave a roar of anger, thrusting his arms forward, and the Susanoo replicated what he did, dispersing the giant wave as he took aim at the 2 sages. Firing 2 arrows at both small toads, they leaped out of the way, using their superior agility to avoid Susanoo arrows. Naruto felt one of his clones bursting away and he re-entered Sage mode and he took off running at Sasuke. The Uchiha took aim and fired again, and the Hokage's eyes widened and he moved to the left, but the arrow still grazed his side. Even in Sage mode, the arrow drew blood and he skidded away, clutching his side. The next is going through your head, Sasuke said, aiming at Naruto as Fukasaku and Shima then leaped into the air. Senpo. Kawazunaki, Sage Art. Frog Call. Both Toad Sages yelled, sending a pulsing wave of chakra and sound waves at the Uchiha. Sasuke attempted to fire, but he couldn't move an inch, and his eyes widened in rage. Naruto managed to get out of the way, and the Uchiha gave another roar in anger and frustration, and a massive cloak of armor then came up and wrapped around his Susanoo, fully completing it. Naruto created 2 Kage Bushins again, and both dropped smoke bombs down to shield themselves from Sasuke's eyes. The Uchiha's new crossbow aimed and there was then the sound of a whirling buzzsaw-like thing. The smoke cleared away and there was Naruto with his 2 clones, holding the Futon. Rasen Shuriken over his head. What the hell is that attack? Sasuke thought as blood dripped from his eye, as well as blood dripping from Naruto's side. It doesn't matter, I'll kill him with this last shot. 2 more arrows were loaded in the now fully armored Susanoo's crossbow, and Naruto took a deep breath. The Rasen Shuriken spun over his head faster, and he took a step forward. The 2 attacks were insanely fastest would determine which was faster. Just as Sasuke set 1 arrow flying, Naruto threw the Rasen Shuriken. The rapidly spinning attack sounded like a buzzsaw on steroids as it flew through the air and hit the Susanoo just as it fired. The impact of the attack disrupted Sasuke's aim, sending the arrow flying into the ceiling. The Armorbigan Krakenga's the Rasen Shuriken continued to bore into Iton then. Like a panel of glass, it shattered into a million pieces, and the high-spinning Rasen Shuriken flew past and out of the fortress, crashing into one of the Wolfmaw peaks and cutting it in half before exploding a full second later. Sasuke groaned in pain as his Susanoo crashed away. Naruto was back in his normal form, panting as his former rival managed to create another Chidori. Naruto created a clone, forming the Futen. Rasengan and the two fighters charged, Chidori impacting Futen. Rasengan. Ultimately, the Futen. Rasengan won the clash, dispelling the Uchiha's Chidori and badly slashing up his arm as the attack exploded, sending him spiraling back. By now, Inoki, Akatsuki, Kuritsuchi, Mei, Ao and Chijiro had reached where the battle was finishing up and witnessed Sasuke crashing into the wall, blacking out after coughing up blood. Naruto panted, landing on his feet and then he dropped to his knees before looking at the Uchiha resolutely. "Ivuin Sasuke," Naruto said, panting, "and he looked today. He'll rot in the prison inn." "I think not," a new voice said as a spiral mask appeared out of a vacuum, wearing an Akatsuki robe and standing near Sasuke. "Sorry, I still have uses for Sasuke, Naruto." Standing before the assembled Kages and their bodyguards was Uchiha Madara, leader of Akatsuki and #1 criminal on the planet. His Sharingan eye seemed to smile at the people gathered. "Now let's have a chat, shall we?" To be continued. Chapter 5. Fourth Shinobi World War declared. Birth of the Shinobi Alliance Konoha. While the attack from Sasuke happened in Iron Country, in Konoha several things have been happening. One of the things is Danzo has decided to move his base of operations out of Konoha so he could start biding his time until Naruto's inevitable failure at the summit. For now, Danzo would leave Konoha in the young Hokage's untested hands, knowing that the daimyo would make the right decision in the future. The journey to the new base would take several days due to it covering the roughest terrain in Fire Country, but it would be worth it. Little did he know he was being watched, and not by a Konoha shinobi. Madara will be very interested in this development, Zetsu's black half-thought, poking out of a tree, using his Kagerm, Mayfly, ability to keep watch over the root leader. Better tell him soon. At the same time, Sakura was helping Shizune and taking care of Tsunade. She was remembering what she did 2 days ago after things had settled down between those two Kumo ninja and herself, Sai and Hinata. Was it right to tell those Kumo ninja about Sasuke? Shouldn't I have asked for more information myself? Sakura thought, dabbing a wet cloth on Tsunade's wrinkled forehead. On the former Hokage's forehead, a purple diamond outline had appeared and was slowly being filled in by more purple color at the very bottom of it. This was a good sign. It would mean that she was gathering chakra to her forehead again in the Ying seal for the SMZM Saisei, creation rebirth. Once the seal was filled, Shizune presumed that Tsunade would reawaken. She breathed out as the flap of the tent opened, revealing Shikamaru. "Shikamaru. Hey Sakura, gathering the rest of the grapple of us need to talk." Sakura blinked. "Alright, where?" "At the lumber piles where the dango shop used to be," Shikamaru said and Sakura nodded. "Alright," Sakura said, following him. Shortly, they had gathered with the other rookies and Team Guy. Sai was also invited to come and Hinata looked over to Shikamaru, who took a deep breath through his nose. "I'm sure you've all heard the little skirmish that Sakura, Hinata and Sai had with 2 of the Kumo ninja that had entered the village," Shikamaru started and everyone nodded slowly. "Then you know what they were asking about, correct? Information about Sasuke-kun, correct?" Ino asked and Shikamaru nodded. "Why were they asking about that?" "Sasuke's became an international criminal now, that's why," Shikamaru said, breathing out. "He invaded the Land of Lightning's borders and attacked one of their best shinobi. Not only Thade's part of Akatsuki now." "What? That doesn't make any sense." Kiba yelled and Akamaru, his large white ninja dog, barked in agreement. Why the hell would that idiot join the same organization that his brother was in? "Maybe someone influenced Sasuke to join after he killed Itachi," Shino said calmly, pushing up his dark glasses. "It is still troublesome. We did fight the Tobi Akatsuki member, maybe he had something to do with Sasuke's joining of Akatsuki," Hinata said, and the genius Nara nodded. "Whatever there is on his crimes cannot be ignored anymore," Shikamaru said, looking at his friends and teammates. Due to Pain's invasion of Konoha, the village would never accept an Akatsuki back into its ranks. Not only that, if Konoha doesn't do anything, it could lead to war with Kumagakure. "Shikamaru, what are you saying?" Tenten asked, shifting so the weapon scroll on her back wasn't pressing into her back. "We have to take responsibility," Shikamaru said, closing his eyes. "Sasuke, we're going to have to hunt him down and kill him." Ino's and Sakura's eyes widened. Shikamaru, you can't be serious." "You're joking, right?" Ino asked, her eyes wide. "Ino, I think you know perfectly by now when Shikamaru is serious," Choji said, the large Akamichi closing his eyes. "I agree. I do as well," Shino said, looking at the others. "Sasuke has crossed a line in which there is no coming back." Sakura breathed in as the rest of her friends began agreeing about how to deal with Sasuke. After the conversation, they all looked at her. She gave a small gulp when they focused on her. Yes. Sakura, what do you think? Sasuke was your teammate, Ino asked, being one of the few who wasn't agreeing with the decision. Sakura took a deep breath. If we reached Sasuke before he fought Itachi, it'd agree, but now. She closed her eyes, hoping she'd make the right decision. I agree, Sasuke's threatening the peace of the world has to be stopped. Shikamaru nodded. I see. He closed his eyes. Naruto's Hokage no has other things to worry about than Sasuke. We have to deal with him, he's our responsibility. The other members of the Konoha 11 all nodded in agreement and Sakura breathed out. She hoped they were doing the right thing about this. When Naruto returns, he'll tell him. He's my friend and teammate, Sakura said, and Shikamaru nodded. Got it, Sakura, Shikamaru said, and Sakura took a deep breath and Hinata looked to her. Iron Country, fortress of the Kage Summit, right in front of all 5 Kages and their bodyguards, was the shadow leader of Akatsuki, Uchiha Madara, who founded the organization with Nagato. In the opening of the spiral mask he was wearing was a single glowing Sharingan eye. He glanced down at Sasuke and the other members of his team. Then he looked at Naruto and behind his mask he smirked. Well, it happened sooner than I expected, but you two did end up fighting, Madara said, reaching down and lifting Sasuke's prone, unconscious form over his shoulder. The Uchiha's hand was bleeding a lot from the wounds inflicted by the Futon. Rasengan. TSK Sasuke, you got too overconfident. Get your hands off Sasuke, you snake. Naruto snarled, entering Sage mode again almost instantly as the A's Raten no Yoroi flared to life. I've worked a hard time to get Sasuke on my side, Naruto, so I think not, Madara said as he activated his jutsu and Sasuke was sucked into his eye. So close yet again, weren't you, Naruto? Naruto bore his teeth angrily, Kyuubi chakra beginning to leak into his system. His whisker marks became frayed as his eyes turned red and a cat-like vertical slit appeared in the middle of the block-like toad eye that he had. Shut the hell up. Naruto roared, leaping at Madara at a speed he didn't expect. He created a red-colored Rasengan, the size of a basketball, and slammed it through the shadow leader's body, but he passed right through. The second he did though, he turned and delivered a roundhouse kick to Madara's face. Madara raised his arm to block, but it wasn't fast enough and the flat top of Naruto's foot smashed into the shadow leader's mask, making him fly back. Suddenly a massive of white appeared on the wall. It was Zetsu's white half, which cushioned the blow. You okay, boss? Zetsu asked as a crack vertically appeared on Madara's mask. Yes, Zetsu, I'm fine, Madara said. Behind his mask, his nose bleeding white blood though as did his mouth. Naruto, you again show me why you messed up my plans. I'm beginning to see why Nagato sided with you in the end. Naruto bore his teeth as hundreds of white Zetsus began to drop from the ceiling and the floor like drops of water. They landed with a splash then formed into their humanoid forms. So much for the greatness of the Kages, Zetsu said as white began to bubble up from Inoki's, Akatsuki's, Mei's, Ao's, and Chijuro's bodies. It also tried to get through Gaara's shield but was crushed by his sand. Neji was able to destroy the Zetsu forming on his back with a Choukaten, and the ones forming on A were electrocuted by the Raten no Yoroi. The one appearing on Naruto just turned to stone. Madara walked over to Karen, who was being helped up by a weakened Jugo and Karen. You three, take good care of Sasuke please, he said, sucking them into his dimension as his mask continued to crack. He then took a seat. Shall we talk? I'm holding all the cards here. Naruto growled as Kakashi, who had dealt with the Zetsu on him before he could be completely chakra drained, walked over and put his hand on his shoulder. Calm down, Naruto. He's baiting you. Naruto nodded, taking a deep breath. What did you do to Sasuke? What was all that crap he was spouting? I'm just maturing the dark seed that Itachi planted in him, Madara said with a grin behind his mask. All that hatred, it's easy to manipulate. Orochimaru knew that too, the instant he corrupted Sasuke was the instant he'd become my subordinate. Orochimaru nurtured that festering hatred that Itachi planted and I matured it and directed it to suit my own needs. So you lied to him to get him on your side? Neji asked, keeping his Byakugan on Madara. He could see the man's facet was very wrinkled around his eyes, both of his Sharingan eyes seemed to be permanently activated. Mixing a bunch of half-truths and lies is easy for me, Madara said with a grin. Like the truth that the Uchiha were killed by Itachi to save Konoha and the rest of the world. What are you? The Uchiha were going to start a civil war in Konoha, starting with several bombings, since they saw themselves being denied power, Madara said with a grin. I had a hand in that. Like his youngest son, Fugaku was easy to manipulate. He folded his hands. To make a long story short, Itachi was forced to choose between his clan and the village. He chose the village and took the Uchiha's sin onto himself to be cleansed. Inoki chuckled. This is all very fascinating, Madara, if that's who you really are. The white Zetsu on his back turned to stone. If you really are who you say you are, why are you going to these lengths? With your power, you should be able to do anything you want, bar invade a village. Yes, Inoki. I see you're still alive, Madara said. The injuries that Hashirama gave me, as well as those that Namikaze Minato inflicted have practically crippled me. And my favorite pet is beyond my grasp at the moment. Akatsuki's shadow leader looked at Naruto at that, who just narrowed his eyes at him. Madara smirked as his Zetsu army stood on guard, waiting for his command. The 5 great nations of the world, give your Jinchuriki to me. The Hachibi and the Kyuubi are the only 2 I lack, Madara stated, and Abe blinked. I thought you already had Killer Bee. He escaped. Your brother is quite the remarkable ninja, Madara replied, crossing his arms. Now, as I was saying, turn the Hachibi and Kyuubi over to me, and we'll have no conflict. Why do you need the Biju anyway? May demanded as she melted the Zetsu on her. Ah yes, Biju. I am just going to combine all 9 and recreate the Gyuubi, the 10-tailed demon beast that the Rikido Sennin defeated nearly 3,000 years ago, Madara said with a grin. It's all a plan to become complete, if you will. Gyuubi, Rikido Sennin, those are just myths. Everyone knows that, Inoki said, and he looked at Madara. What is your real objective? I assure you, Tsuchikage, the Gyuubi and Rikido Sennin were quite real. The Rikido Sennin's strongest being to ever live on this planet, master of the Rinnegan, Madara said. He left a tablet that could only be read, in the order of the stronger eyes, the Sharingan, Mangekyo Sharingan, and finally the Rinnegan could fully decode it. As his mask continued to crack, he looked at Inoki. Fully decoded, I was able to finally start the Eye of the Moon plan with myself, as the new Gyuubi Jinchuriki will cast an eternal Tsukiyomi over the planet and end all conflict, bringing peace and destroying free will in the process, Gaara snarled. Small price too. Don't bullshit us, Naruto snarled. You don't want peace, you just want domination, Madara. True, Madara said, and he folded his arms. I have 7 Biju under my control, as well as favors of many minor countries to pull on. If you refuse, this'll mean war. You won't get what you want, bastard, Naruto snarled, and the other Kages nodded in agreement. Very well then I declare the 4th Shinobi World War. When we next meet, my honored Kages, it will be on the battlefield, Madara said, and half his mask fell showing the face of an old man and then a huge spiral appeared and he vanished, and the white Zetsus were pulled away with him. The 5 Kages and their bodyguards stood there for a few minutes, digesting what happened. We can't let Madara get away at what he wants, I said calmly, standing up fully as his Raiten no Yoroi faded. I hate to say it, but you're right, Raikage Dono, Inoki said, crossing his arms. Though what can be done about it? I suggest we finalize the plans to make the alliance, Mifyun's voice interjected as he walked down. Madara made his plans clear, if any of the nations ever hope to survive, we need to ally. The Kages nodded in agreement and Inoki then asked. Then who should lead us? Konoha, Mifyun said without any hesitation. As well as Hokage Dono. He's proven himself to me fully. I agree with Mifyun-san's assessment, Mei said, and Gaara nodded. Second, Gaara said, and A looked at Naruto. I agree as well, A said and Naruto breathed out, closing his eyes. I'll do my best then though I can't do it alone, Naruto said as Inoki harumphed. Youth these days this alliance won't last without people with experience in fighting Madara, Inoki said, and he looked at the young Hokage. Let me make this clear, Hokage Dono, I don't like nor trust you. But you have experience fighting Akatsuki, as does your village being veterans in fighting them already. That side'll stand with you as will a Wagakure. Naruto nodded, breathing out. Very well, he swear then, I won't fail you then he then put his hands to his stomach. I need to master the Kyuubi then for my next battle with Sasuke as well as to beat Madara. Time to master the jutsu. Iron Country forests as the meeting of the 5 Kages concluded, deep in the snow-covered forests of Iron Country, the sound of deep singing was heard. As well as the sound of a growling bear. A third voice, which spoke in rhymes was also heard. In a clearing, there stood Kumagakure's remaining Jinchuriki, brother of the Raikage, Killer Bee. He was writing notes into a notebook as he listened to his teacher, a middle-aged man who wore his hair in a large puffy top knot and wore a white hamaka over a mesh shirt and black pants. Enka is about passion. You must have passion in every word you make, Killer Bee. Right, Sabu-sensei? Now, give it a try. Killer Bee took a deep breath, trying to find a beat. Give a call to the wall, beat the heat with his seat. No, all wrong. You don't need to rhyme these out, Sabu said as Ponta began growling. The large Tanuki's ears fluttered and he sniffed the air and he sat up, his large black with white striped tail wiggling. Ponta, what's bothering ya? Killer Bee looked up as a light blue-colored shark-like man with 6 gills on his face and strange beady eyes arrived. He had a Kurigakure headband on his forehead, keeping his aqua blue hair up. He was carrying a large sword, wrapped up with bandages. Didn't expect the Hachibi to be here of all places, but my Samahata likes its chakra, the man said, showing sharp teeth to Killer Bee and Sabu. Killer Bee looked and saw the robe he was wearing. It was an Akatsuki robe. Ponta growled, charging the shark man who grinned. The massive tanuki rose his paw and went to swipe the man with its claws. He grabbed its paw with ease and then slammed his sword into the giant tanuki's jaw, making him crash down, stunned. The blow was so great, the bandages wrapped around the sword ripped, revealing scales. "For such a big bear, you go down easy," the shark man said with a grin. "Name's Hoshigaki Kisame, I'm taking you in, Hachibi." "Anta's not a bear, he's a tanuki," Sabu yelled, yanking off his axe, and he put the back of the blade on his back. "Prepare to feel my passion." Kisame gave a viscous smirk as the Enka ninja charged him and slashed his heavy axe at the former seven swordsman. The Akatsuki slammed his sword into the ground to block it, and as he was about to retaliate, Killer Bee charged up his pencil with Raiten chakra and threw it right at Kisame's head. The swordsman's eye widened, seeing the supercharged pencil flying at him, and he dodged, throwing his head down as he leaped into the air and smashed his heel into Sabu's jaw, sending the Enka ninja crashing into Ponta. Both the Enka ninja and his tanuki were sent crashing through the forest, knocked out cold. Kisame yanked out his samahata to block a double slash from above from Killer Bee. The sound of clashing metal was heard through the forest as the two engaged in an intense sword duel. The Hachibi Jinchuriki had switched to two-sword style since he lacked his other 5 swords. Kisame gave a laugh, blocking and dodging each of Killer Bee's slashes and stabs. "This guy's good and his strength's incredible," Killer Bee thought as he landed and crossed his swords to block an overhead slash from Samahata, and the ground cracked underneath his feet. "But I'm better, motherfucker." Letting Samahata's weight win, Bee skid back before spinning around and slamming his foot into Kisame's face, sending the 7 swordsmen skidding back. Lightning chakra charged into Killer Bee's stinger swords, and he leapt into the air, spinning like a buzzsaw, his entire body being covered in the Raiten no Yoroi like his brothers. Raiten no Yoroi. Raiten Bazu no Kajiri, lightning release armor. Lightning buzzsaw. Bee yelled, closing in on Kisame. The 7 swordsmen grinned, and before the attacks hit, he performed a horizontal slash hand. Killer Bee's Raiten no Yoroi faded, as did the lightning around his swords. The stingers still dug into his shoulders, but they were shallow wounds. Bee blinked when that happened, wondering what was up. Pretty impressive attack, Hachibi," Kisame said with a grin, Samahata quivering in delight at the chakra it just fed on. "It eat my chakra?" Killer Bee thought, and his brown eyes glanced at Samahata. "Or did that and wait a test?" Red chakra bubbled around Bee's body, forming 4 tails around him. The chakra was as hard as iron and formed a shield similar to that what Naruto could make in his Jinchuriki states. Around his head formed ethereal bull horns, as sharp as the sharpest sword. "Headbutt, oh, headbutt," Bee yelled, throwing his head forward at insane speeds. Kisame grinned maliciously, his sharp teeth showing in a feral grin as he moved his head to meet Bee's headbutt. Samahata then began eating the Hachibi's cloak around Killer Bee's body, taking the power out of his attack. So much chakra went into the chakra-eating sword, it swelled, and the exposed scales shivered, and it sounded light when Kagigaju like it had a mouth. "Strange sword, it must have been bored, eating number 8's chakra will give it a bellyache, and then I'll gut you straight. You big stupid shark. You definitely are smarter than you look, I see why you escaped Itachi's little brother." "Samahata very much enjoys that calamari-flavored chakra of yours," Kisame said with a polite grin. "I rarely see him get so excited over a meal. Yes, you're worth shaving down to the bone. So the scary shark man treats his sword all sweet. Too bad you're both about to get beat," Bee said in a rap, leaping back, and Kisame gave a wide grin, showing his extremely sharp teeth. "Check it, huh?" Samahata began shaking, and all of its scales slashed through the bandages wrapped around it. The massive amount of sharp scales kept quivering, and the gigigigigi continued and right at the top of the mouth. The mouth opened and showed several sharp teeth and showing its tongue. "I'll say it again, Hoshigaki Kisame's the name, remember it," Kisame said with a grin. He gave a smirk, and he did 2 seals. "Raiten Bushin no Jutsu," he said with a grin, and in a few bolts of lightning, there were now several Killer Bees in the forest. All of the Raiten Bushins grinned. Suddenly red chakra bubbled up all around them, forming 4 tails. The real Killer Bee gave a smirk, sending another burst of Hachibi chakra into his own body, forming another 4 tails. "The ho-ho," Kisame said with a grin. "Looks like Samahata's going to eat well today." Iron Country, Kage Summit Building. After the attack and the declaration of war, all 5 Kages and their bodyguards were now sitting down to finalize things in the alliance. Naruto had reluctantly assumed the station of commander-in-chief, but he insisted that the Raikage, be his second in command, due to him having more experience with this. The Kages were discussing who was most likely to join Akatsuki, as well as the remaining members. "He is called Zetsu, we saw one of his abilities during the attack," Kakashi stated, talking before the Kages. "He is Akatsuki's primary scout and hunter ninja. He also was assigned to take down Han, the Jinchuriki of the Gobi," Inoki added, leaning forward. "As far as we know, Hoshigaki Kisame is also alive, former partner to Uchiha Itachi," Naruto said, looking at Terumi Mei, the Mizukage. Do you have any information or weaknesses that Kisame may have? I don't, but Chijuro might, Mei said, looking over to the young swordsman. Chijuro gulped but pushed his glasses up. My sensei would often talk about Hoshigaki Kisame and his sword, Samehada. Kisame was the strongest of all 7 swordsmen of the Hidden Mist, and his chakra levels could be comparable to the Sanbi, thus getting him the name of the Biju without a tail, Chijuro said, gripping his Hirameki. Of all the swords, Samehada is the most evil. All the swords have unique properties, and they all chose their wielder. Even Mamachi's Abusa's decapitating carving knife has some sense of self. It makes Kisame virtually invincible. He can use it to slash visible chakra to add to his own reserves, sometimes even taking out jutsus. The only weakness I can think of is not using visible chakra in jutsus. When I was still a genin, 3 years ago, I experienced that ability myself, Naruto said, breathing in. I tried to summon Kyuubi's chakra to help out Sasuke when he was my teammate at the time, but Kisame just dropped his sword and the chakra was gone. They all nodded and the Kages looked to Inoki. Do you have any information of Madara that we can use? Anything I can tell you Younjins is in the history books. I have no experience with the ability he's using now, Inoki said, leaning back. If that's it for current members of Akatsuki, we should discuss potential members so we can eliminate them before they can even join Akatsuki, Mei said, folding her hands. I'll start. 2 months ago, one of our strongest jonin betrayed us. His name is Tokiya Jinchu. He's known as the Butcher of the Shadows and is known for his darkness ninjutsu where he can literally blend with any shadow and strike from there. The other Kages nodded and Gaara leaned forward. In the confusion of my kidnapping, there was a jailbreak in our primary prison. We recaptured most of the prisoners except for one, Hido the vampire. When I was 6 years old, he was arrested by my father personally after murdering 2 of our Anbu captains and their entire squads after he had used his Keki Genkai on 3 of Sunagaku's counselors. His technical merely needs to touch you to pull all the water out of your body. He then uses that water to use suitans, even in the dryness of the desert, and he's a master of Futon ninjutsu. Wagakur, we have 2 likely candidates for Akatsuki, Inoki said. The twins, Yuma and Teru. They have the unique Keki Genkais, one which links their minds, similar to the Yamanaka clan techniques. What one twin sees, the other sees. They used their abilities well in service for Iwa until they decided they wanted more power. They used their second Keki Genkai to turn Iwa's head jonin into stone, similar to my dust release, and then killed 3 Anbu squads before escaping. No one could lay their hands on them. I took a deep sigh. One of our best shinobi, from the Hikaru clan, had escaped from Kumagakure shortly after I called this meeting. His name is Hikaru Hiro, and I was grooming him to be my successor. I didn't know what his true nature was until it was too late. Harap 2 Kunoichi who were pursuing them angeted them. By time the Anbu arrived on the Senna was gone and all we had was his handiwork. His brother, Kuro, had no idea he was capable of this and his girlfriend, Biri, chose not to betray Kumo and nearly lost her life. He closed his eyes. With my brother's capture, I neglected to follow up on Hiro's trail. We'll correct that oversight, Reikage Dono, Gaara said. I propose we unify our intelligence corps so we can send a unified front against these missing ninja. With luck we'll either capture or execute them before they join Akatsuki if that's their plan. I second the proposal, Naruto said, and Mei nodded. Hearded, Mei said, looking at Ao. This is Ao's area of expertise. I propose we make him leader of the Unified Intelligence Corporation. Agreed, I said, looking at Ao. He is the best man for the job. For the final part of business, Naruto started, getting everyone's attention. Being one of the remaining 2 Jinchuriki, I feel like I need to be hidden at least until the time I can control the Kyuubi's power. I'm more of a liability without the Kyuubi being under my control. When we find Killer B, Hokage Dono, we'll send you both to the island where B learned to master the Hachibi after. I give him a stern lecture and my iron claw, that is, I said and Naruto nodded. Thank you. Contact Konoha after Killer B is found so we can finalize the plans, Naruto said, and the Reikage nodded. If there's no more business, I declare this meeting adjourned so we can all prepare our villages for war. The Kages all gave a firm nod at that and got up to disperse. As soon as Naruto got out of the main hall, he began breathing rapidly as he attempted to calm himself. He closed his eyes, breathing in through his nose. Are you alright, Naruto? Kakashi asked and Naruto nodded, breathing out. Just trying to deal with my anxiety, Naruto said, and he closed his eyes, putting his hand to his stomach. I'm ready to control this power needed to beat Sasuke the second time and Madara as well as complete that jutsu, Dad. Kakashi nodded as Neji walked over. Are you ready to leave, Hokage-sama? Yeah, Neji. Let's get going, got some preparations to make, Naruto said as the 3 Konoha ninja walked to the exit. Iron Country, Kisame vs Killer B battlefield. Kisame was grinning, holding Samehada horizontally to the ground as the sword's mouth opened, making the creeping gigigigi noise. All the Killer Bee Raiden clones had the four-tailed cloak over them and were holding their swords up. As expected from a perfect Jinchuriki, Kisame said with a grin, looking at all of the clones. The Kyuubi kid is a clone master, but I guess he's not the only one. But you're talking so we can go walking. I'm gonna beat you down to the ground and bury you in a mound. All the Killer Bees said at the same time and they all attacked at once. Kisame grinned, running forward to meet the charge. He swung Samehada, which first ate the Hachibi cloaks over the nearest clones, before eating the Raiden clones themselves. He dodged and ducked each lariat, headbutt, red chakra arms, all the while having Samehada eat the cloaks and clones. Killer Bee himself jumped forward, horns appearing on his bicep and shoulder. Lariat. He yelled, preparing to run Kisame through. Kisame grinned, sidestepping the attack, and he smashed Samehada down, eating Killer Bee's cloak. However, he was left open for two heavy punches by Killer Bee's remaining clones, which sent him flying back while still holding his sword. Samehada however acted as an anchor and made its scales grow and impaled and ate all the chakra in the clones. Killer Bee jumped back, barely avoiding the now nearly engorged Samehada. Hungry little sword, Killer Bee said with a grin, looking at Kisame. Looks like I'm gonna have to take it up a notch, those were my last clones. Kisame grinned. Please do, this is getting fun. Land of Iron, Forest's Killer Bee gave a confident grin at Kisame, who hefted his enlarged sword up to prepare. He couldn't risk fully transforming just yet, it might give him away and he might hurt Sabu and Ponta wherever they landed. In his mind, the Hachibi looked at his mental form. So are you going to fully transform B? It might be smart. Nah, not yet. Going to use version 2, so be ready number 8. Killer Bee pushed his arms back as he gave a yell. Red bubbles then burst off his body, forming into 7 tails and bull horns. And then the transparent chakra filled completely with a translucent red color, with little red flames of chakra wafting up the cloak. Killer Bee's face was covered by the red chakra, and there were 2 glowing wide eyes and a mouth with jagged teeth on the chakra. Oh yeah. This feels good in the hood. Killer Bee said, the ground cracking under him as the snow evaporated all around him from the extreme heat that his new chakra cloak was generating. Interestings compressed the power of a Bijuu into human form. Kisame remembered reports Zetsu gathered from the battle between Orochimaru and Naruto nearly a year ago, as well as between Naruto and Pain. Unlike the Kyuubi kid though, it seems like this guy can keep his mint that makes him 10 times dangerous. A toothy grin appeared on Kisame's face. Perfect. Let's see how much your hungry little sword can take before I break it. Killer Bee said, his own toothy grin appearing in the chakra cloak. Kisame charged Killer Bee, who smashed his hands into the ground and ripped up a huge slab of earth, and he swung it like a huge club at the Akatsuki member. Kisame used Samehada to block, shattering the makeshift club as Killer Bee himself charged, launching a powerful punch at Kisame and making him fly back into and through several trees, further away from Sabu and Ponta. The Hachibi Jinchuriki blurred and then vanished, and its fists enlarged as he reappeared over the Akatsuki member. Bringing down the enlarged chakra hands in a hammer strike, Kisame used his enlarged Samehada to control his flight by smashing it into the ground like an anchor. He twisted, avoiding the fists as they struck the ground, causing a mini earthquake and cratering the ground massively. Killer Bee's tails lashed out, acting like whips as they tried to strike the Akatsuki member. Kisame gave a grin, hefting Samehada up to drain each tail, but the chakra acted on its own, barely avoiding the sword and smashing into Kisame's shoulder. Kisame growled, being pushed back as Killer Bee made a flexing motion. Blood poured out of the swordsman's shoulder, but it began closing as he held onto Samehada. A huge ox skull with 2 sharp horns appeared on Killer Bee's shoulder, as well as the spine. The ground cracked underneath him again as the snow evaporated all around him, creating the effect of a supercharged mist, filled completely with Hachibi chakra. Kisame hefted his sword, seeing the ox skull through the wafting mist. Tau Lariato, Super Lariat. Killer Bee yelled, taking off at Kisame at high speeds. Kisame's eyes widened slightly and he brought Samehada up to block. The huge ox skull smashed into the sword, wrenching it from the Akatsuki member's grasp, and the rest of the skull smashed into his chest. Samehada managed to eat up most of the chakra, making Killer Bee revert to his first version state with only 1 tail. Kisame smashed into a nearby tree and the tree collapsed as blood dripped out of his mouth. I can't believe I reverted to this version, hungry little sword. Kisame's entire chest had been blown away, exposing his ribs and collarbone. He chuckled, continuing to cough up blood as he put a hand to his wound and reached out. Hey, you got me, Hachibi. Kisame reached out and Samehada flew into his hands. Despite being absolutely engorged by the Hachibi chakra, as well as its own injury, it still responded with speed to Kisame's commands. This fight is just getting started. What are you talking about, fool? Killer Bee demanded as Kisame's mortal wound began healing. Fresh new blue flesh began covering Kisame's ribs as he regenerated from the Chao Lariato. When he was fully healed, the Akatsuki member gave a grin and he slashed the air with his sword and rotated his shoulder. Giving Killer Bee a toothy grin, his face began to get more shark-like. "I'm the best Akatsuki member at taking their target alive," Kisame said with a wide grin, charging his chakra to his stomach to create a powerful suiton. "My strength is equal to that of my opponent, and with Samehada, I'll never lose to Minithus, making me the perfect weapon against your kind." Killer Bee frowned, and he entered version 2 once more as Kisame's cheeks swelled. "He's gonna use a suiton. This guy's chakra is so big he doesn't need a source." Suiton. Daibakusui Shoha, water release. Great exploding water colliding wave. Kisame yelled, and he spat out a massive amount of water which blew Killer Bee back. The waves buffeted Killer Bee's version 2 form until he was completely submerged. "What Yui couldn't I?" Killer Bee thought, and he looked around as the massive amount of water formed a huge dome. He then shot to look at Kisame. Yuo had now merged with Samehada. His neck had grown out a bit and he now had 6 gills, 3 on each side. On his back was a large dorsal fin, and his elbows had grown flippers, and webbing was now connected his fingers and toes. Finally, he now had a tail and looked incredibly more dangerous. "What the? Is he really half shark now?" Killer Bee asked aloud, having a bit trouble breathing while underwater. If he fully transformed, he would have the gills and the girth needed to survive here, but he couldn't risk it just yet. "I guess I'm in your turf now." "Here I come," Kisame muttered, and in a massive amount of speed, he charged at Killer Bee in the water. Killer Bee created another ox skull, and his tails burst backwards at the same time, propelling him at the same speed as Kisame. Ciao Lariato, Super Lariat. The two collided at insane speeds, the ox skull smashing again into Kisame's body. However, this time, any wound that he got instantly regenerated, and he drained Killer Bee's version 2 cloak away and dove, while the Jinchuriki was caught in his elbow. He smashed Bee into the ground, drawing Killer Bee's blood for the first time when he spat out a copious amount. In retaliation, Killer Bee's remaining tails turned into real tentacles, and he tossed Kisame away before assuming another version 2 cloak. The Jinchuriki jumped up from the floor of the water prison and fired a concentrated beam of chakra from his mouth. Kisame just swam around it, bobbing and weaving as Killer Bee continued to fire at him. "It's useless, Jinchuriki." Kisame yelled, avoiding the last chakra beam, and he did several seals. Suiton. Gashakizum, water release. 5 feeding sharks. He extended his hand and several large sharks, made out of hardened and shaped water, swam at Killer Bee and sank their jaws into his chakra cloak. They dragged him down to the bottom of the prison and smashed him through several trees and then through a large rock. Killer Bee threw his arms out, smashing the water sharks apart but they just reformed. Kisame then smashed his way through and slashed at the Jinchuriki with his fins. "Ah!" Killer Bee yelled, the air knocked out of his lungs again as his version 2 cloak was eaten by Samehada, which was in Kisame's body. "Damn it, this isn't getting nowhere. And I'm running out of air." "Don't worry, Hachibi, I won't kill you." Kisame yelled, slamming into Killer Bee again and eating the remains of his chakra cloak before breaking off. "Though that doesn't mean I can't break a few of your bones." Killer Bee growled. "Okay, number 8, I think it's time to come out." "It's about time, Bee." Hachibi yelled as a new chakra cloak burst from Killer Bee's body. Kisame watched, and he blinked as the cloak receded as Killer Bee's legs disappeared. 8 massive tentacles took its place as wave of bubbles came rising up, obscuring the Akatsuki member's view. Kisame's jaw dropped as Killer Bee's chakra level spiked, even though before they were almost completely drained when the bubbles cleared. Standing right before the Akatsuki member was the Hachibi itself. "Now you've brought out the bull, you massive tool." Killer Bee yelled, using the Hachibi's mouth. "Gonna stomp you into dust and break that annoying little sword." Crap, Kisame thought as the Hachibi's tails pulsed and then sent it barreling forward at the Akatsuki member. Fully transformed, he can't absorb his chakra like this. And that form gave him gills. Time to change tactics. Kisame dodged the Hachibi's massive hand as it tried to grab him and the tentacles shot out at him. The Akatsuki member bobbed and weaved, attempting to avoid all of the Hachibi strikes, but the tails were incredibly fast. One smashed into his back and he pushed upwards, cutting the tip off, but was met by the Hachibi's fist. It sent him flying back and Killer Bee pushed the Hachibi form forward in pursuit. Kisame caught himself, growling, only to have one of Hachibi's horns smashing into his stomach. He coughed up blood and was sent flying upwards when Killer Bee shook the form's head. Kisame's wound closed and then he saw a massive amount of chakra gathering at the Hachibi's mouth, one of the Biju's strongest attacks, the menacing ball. This is a perfect chance as any Samehada can absorb some of that and it'll survive. Time to go to plan B, Kisame thought as Hachibi gave a roar and shot the massive blast right up at the Akatsuki member. The menacing ball crashed into Kisame as he cried out in pain and then the projectile exploded, shattering the water prison and making it rain for kilometers around. The blast also cleared the clouds overhead which were bringing snow to the area. The Hachibi form landed on the ground, creating a mini earthquake as Killer Bee untransformed. "That guy was tough," Killer Bee said, panting as Samehada spun in the air as it fell to the ground, landing blade first. At least he's dead no though, I bet my chakra was detected. It was a fun vacation while it lasted. Samahada's hilt then reached out to him and he blinked. It was making the same giga sound it was before and Killer Bee walked over as his brother, Shy, and Derry landed. The Raikage looked both relieved and angry at the same time. Killer Bee grasped the hilt and his chakra was replenished. Hard to miss a blast like that, Derry said, looking at Shy. Though you were right in the direction to go. Thanks Derry, Shy said as Killer Bee lifted Samahada. Egasa Killer Bee started as A stormed over to his younger brother. B. You have any idea how worried I've been? A demanded, grasping his brother's head with his right hand. I should give you an iron claw for this. Killer Bee began shaking in fear at his brother's anger. Even his right hand is insanely strong. On Hagakure, 2 days later, Naruto's team was returning home, entering through the gates. The young Hokage looked around as a massive crowd gathered around him. He blinked, seeing people holding up banners of "Welcome home Naruto. Great job." And other things. "Welcome home, Hokage-sama." The crowd cheered in unison, and Naruto blinked. Thanks Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head. He looked over the crowd to see that a small section of Konoha had been rebuilt where the old downtown used to be. At the center of it was a new Hokage tower, right at the base of the monument. Yamato came walking forward. Got the tower all finished, Naruto. It's ready for your inspection. Thanks Yamato Taicho, Naruto said as he walked through the crowd. Sakura was grinning at her teammate, but she was breathing nervously. I'll tell him when he gets settled, Sakura thought as she looked at Hinata and then nudged her forward. Go talk to him. You've been waiting the longest out of all of us. Hinata blushed. Thanks Sakura-chan. She walked forward, looking at Naruto. She took several calming breaths, trying to get rid of her stammer. Naruto, can I accompany you to your office? Naruto smiled. I'd like that Hinata-chan, a lot. Hinata nearly fainted at that and the crowd cheered again. Neji gave a smile at what his cousin did. Shikamaru glanced at Sakura, guessing she was going to use Hinata as a distraction so the issue about Sasuke wouldn't be pushed. He shook his head at that. Shortly, Naruto was in his new office and he was looking around. Neji had gone to rest after the mission, but Kakashi and Hinata escorted him there. It was almost a carbon copy of Tsunade's and Hirazen's old office, except well new. There was even a similar desk there, as well as the same type of chair. Kakashi smiled. Well Naruto, you have time. Go on, it's your chair now. Thanks sensei, Naruto said, walking over to his new chair and he slowly pulled it out before taking a seat behind the desk. Whoa, this is the first time. Wow. Yeah, you look great there, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, and Naruto smiled at her. Thanks, he said, putting the Hokage hat down on the desk. Alright, where to start first? I believe we have some financial reports to go over, as well as a message from the daimyo arrived, and Tsunade-sama's medical status, as well as other statuses in the new hospital, Kakashi said after walking over to the desk and lifting up some of Naruto's new paperwork. Hope you can handle this. I think I'll need help, but I'll do my best. Naruto said, punching his fists together. Dadabayo, time to start. Hinata smiled as she walked over. I can give a little help if you want, Naruto-kun. Thanks Hinata-chan. Naruto said as Hinata came behind the desk and began helping. Kakashi smiled and he could almost see a mirror image of Minato and Kushina at work where Naruto and Hinata were standing. His smiley eye grew and he left the room. Even with a war declaration, copy ninja didn't feel worried. The next generation's time has truly come, Kakashi thought. To be continued. Chapter 6. Preparations. Konohagakure. Since Naruto returned from the Kage summit, getting Konoha named as the leader of the Shinobi Alliance and becoming the supreme commander of the alliance, the young Hokage has been busy. With the help of Hinata and his clones, he was able to divide reconstruction and financial records and military records. He was also training in his spare time, but he didn't have a way to train with the Kyuubi just yet. So he settled for extending his Sage Mode's time, as well as decreasing the time it took him to enter it. Also during this time, Danzo had left Konoha for his new secondary base, so he'd be able to conduct his own assaults on Akatsuki without being held back by the alliance. He had left in secret, only Koharu and Homura knew he departed, and they were sworn to secrecy. In the training field, Naruto was meditating, his legs crossed. His eyes were closed and he was breathing out, staying perfectly still. Reddish-orange pigmentation was appearing around his eyes, and when it was fully there, he opened them. Frog-like yellow pupils had replaced his blue eyes, signifying he was in Sage Mode. He then looked at the watch on his wrist. Brought the time down to change to 2 minutes, he said, standing up. Now to see how long I can stay in it. In another part of Konoha, where Naruto had fought pain while in his six-tailed form, Hinata was searching for something. Her Byakugan was activated and she was scanning the area. There has to be some left of it here, Hinata thought, walking past the place where Naruto had been pinned down by pain. Using her sight, she looked into the ground and then began digging. She found several small shards of the green crystal that the young Hokage used to wear around his neck before the Kyuubi shattered it. Carefully picking them up, she put them into a bag she brought with her. Alright, when she had gathered all the shards, she looked at the place where she confessed her love for Naruto, and her cheeks blushed. Taking a final breath, she left the place, carrying the shards of the Hokage's necklace with her. In another part of the village, Sakura was furiously training, again trying to put off talking to Naruto about what the Konoha 11's decision about Sasuke. The medic threw punch after punch, trying to increase her speed into jutsu. All around her was fallen trees and walls of rock. Sakura panted, doing another group of seals and the ground turned into a river of mud in front of her. Doten. Doric Taiga, Earth Release. Earth Flow River. Like the rapids near a waterfall, Sakura's Doryu Taiga rushed forward, slamming into multiple trees and falling the knees. Looking at her handiwork, she wiped her forehead, breathing in through her nose. I need to get stronger, Sakura thought, thinking of her teammates. When Naruto returned, we were more or less equal, but now he's grown so strong in just a few months, and Sasuke-kun, she breathed out. I need to catch up to them. She looked up with determination in her eyes. I need to find Kakashi-sensei. At the same time, Naruto was sitting perfectly still in his chair. His eyes were closed and an invisible blue aura began to appear around his body. Wafts of natural energy entered his body as the reddish-orange pigment appeared over his eyes. He then opened them, showing the toad-like iris and rectangular pupil. Alright, now time to see if I can stay longer than 5 minutes in sage mode now. With that, he lifted his pen and began doing his paperwork. In the trash can, there were several broken pencils and pens from when he attempted to write before. He was still having trouble controlling the vast amount of physical strength sage mode grants for everyday purposes. The minutes ticked by, and Naruto was mentally counting down the time to 5 minutes as he continued writing down. He pursed his lips, lifting up one of the new papers. It was an economic report, and he began pound his head with his pencil as he thought. By the time he figured out the problem, 3 more minutes had passed, and he was 6 minutes into the entire sage mode duration. Naruto looked at the clock to see that 6 minutes have passed, and the pigmentation around his eyes faded and his pupils turned back to normal. A smirk appeared on his face, and he lifted his arms up. Now gotta try for 7 minutes for 10, Naruto said, throwing up his hands as Kakashi appeared in the window. Yo, Kakashi said, and his former student grinned and opened the window. Hey sensei, too cool to use the door or something? Naruto asked jokingly, and he leaned back as Kakashi entered. Yeah, well, this is the easier way to enter, Kakashi said with a grin as he entered the room. I have something for you, Naruto. What is it, sensei? Naruto asked, leaning back as the copy ninja handed him a set of tri-bladed kunai. What are these? Those are the kunai the Yondaime Hokage used to use his Hirishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, as well as his Jikiken Kekai, space-time barrier, Kakashi replied with a grin. He even used them to deflect a blast from the Kyuubi no Yoko itself during the attack on Konoha 16 years ago. Naruto's eyes widened in awe, and he lifted one of the kunai. Dad used these. Yes, they earned him the name of the Yellow Flash, Kakashi said, taking a seat. I think he would want you to have them. These are the things that earned Dad his nickname, Naruto thought in awe, looking at the tri-kunai in his hand. Kakashi-sensei, has anyone else been able to figure out his jutsu? No, Yondaime-sama was the only one who mastered the technique, Kakashi replied as Naruto nodded. I need to learn how to do this technique then, Naruto thought, and a smirk appeared on his face. Just watch Dad, I'm gonna surpass you. Akatsuki idiot Madara had returned to the hideout and a vortex appeared over his visible eye. Sasuke, Karen, Jugo, and Sagetsu were disgorged from the dimension he sent them to, landing in a heap on the floor. Zetsu's Venus flytrap body emerged from the ground and opened nearby. Kisame's in position. The plan went off without a hitch, Zetsu's white and black halves reported. Excellent, Madara said, walking over to the table as Karen lifted her head. Madara discarded his damaged mask, reaching for another spiral one. How is Sasuke's healing, girl? He's almost at full health, Karen reported as Sasuke looked up, pushing himself up to standing position. What was that last technique Naruto used? Sasuke thought, thinking of that last clash as he walked to the wall. Naruto created 2 Kage Bushins again, and both dropped smoke bombs down to shield themselves from Sasuke's eyes. The Uchiha's new crossbow aimed and there was then the sound of a whirling buzzsaw-like thing. The smoke cleared away and there was Naruto with his 2 clones, holding the Futen Rasen Shuriken over his head. What the hell is that attack? Sasuke thought as blood dripped from his eye, as well as blood dripping from Naruto's side. It doesn't matter, I'll kill him with this last shot. 2 more arrows were loaded in the now fully armored Susanuo's crossbow, and Naruto took a deep breath. The Rasen Shuriken spun over his head faster, and he took a step forward. The 2 attacks were insanely fast, as would determine which was faster. Just as Sasuke set 1 arrow flying, Naruto threw the Rasen Shuriken. The rapidly spinning attack sounded like a buzzsaw on steroids as it flew through the air and hit the Susanoo just as it fired. The impact of the attack disrupted Sasuke's aim, sending the arrow flying into the ceiling. The Armorbigan Krakenga's the Rasen Shuriken continued to bore into Iton then. Like a panel of glass, it shattered into a million pieces, and the high-spinning Rasen Shuriken flew past and out of the fortress, crashing into one of the Wolf Maw peaks and cutting it in half before exploding a full second later. Sasuke groaned in pain as his Susanoo crashed away. It destroyed even Susanoo, Sasuke thought, pursing his lips in anger, and he punched the wall next to him. How could Naruto get that strong in such a short amount of time? He remembered, nearly 5 months prior when he and Naruto had met up again in Orochimaru's hideout. Naruto couldn't even fight him then, and he had suppressed a tiny fraction of the Kyuubi's might which had leaked out of the seal. There is also something else, Zetsu said, and he turned to Sasuke. You're going to like this, Sasuke. What is it? Madara asked, securing his new mask. Danzo is on the move, Zetsu replied. And completely vulnerable as well, it looks like he's heading to a new route base in the volcanic mountains of southern Fire Country. Sasuke looked up at that, as did Madara. The younger Uchiha's rage exploded at the mention of Danzo's name, and the Susanoo partially formed as his eyes shifted to the Mangekyo Sharingan. Where is he now? Sasuke demanded, his teammate stepping back at his display of power. He is currently nearly 100 kilometers away from Konoha, Zetsu's black half replied calmly. Better wait until he's further away from the village if you want to attack, Sasuke. I agree, Madara said calmly as Sasuke's rage lessened. You'll get your shot, Sasuke. Give it a few days, then Danzo will be far away from Konoha, so you can attack with impunity. Sasuke breathed in and the Susanoo faded around him and his eyes shifted back to normal. Very well, he replied as he began walking. This will give me some time to prepare. Thini won't walk into another hornet's nest. Madara vanished from the room using his jutsu, reappearing at the Jito Meizo statue. 7 Biju were sealed inside it and he smirked. Squeezing his hand into a tight fist, his Sharingan morphed to the eternal Mangekyo and he partially synced with the statue. Its mouth slowly opened and he stepped back as a massive blob of chakra shot out. 7 insect wing-like tails appeared, colored yellow-orange. They connected turning green to an insectoid thorax, where the color began to turn blue. 6 blue legs each with a scythe were attached to the thorax which had 2 spines on its shoulders and 3 indentations on each side of the thorax. Its head had a mouth with several teeth, below which were its mandibulus and a massive horn on top of its head, completed the demon's physique. First shots of the war will be mine and I have the perfect target, Madara said, immediately controlling the third strongest Biju, with his Sharingan sucking it in. And the perfect target is. With that, he vanished into a vortex he created with an Anabi. Fire Country, Northern Railway hub. Ever since the Snow Country developed a steam engine nearly 40 years ago, and the subsequent invention of the locomotive, the Land of Fire, had been the forerunner of steam technology. Dozens of train tracks all met at this hub in the Northern Railway station of the Fire Country. The smell of burning coal and wood was prevalent in the area, and all the trains that went to and from the hub went to most of the countries in the area. Thousands of workers toiled at the station, getting ready for the troop influx that the other countries would be sending for the war. Steam rose from the tracks and the idle trains in several tracks. Just as the first locomotive began pulling up with hundreds of samurai from the Land of Iron, Madara arrived on the outskirts. He smirked behind his mask, seeing the pitiful defenses around the hub. Only a few royal samurai from the daimyo were stationed here, and there weren't even Konoha shinobi stationed here yet. Perfect, Madara said, and a massive vortex opened around his eye. The Nanabi no Kabutamushi surged out of the vortex, roaring, its 6 legs raising around its thorax. Akatsuki's leader still controlled it and sent it charging at the railway hub. The massive insect demon smashed into the incoming train from Iron Country, its scythe-like feet slashing through the rails. It smashed its horn through the ground, sending many people and equipment flying through the air. It gave a loud roar, sending a massive shockwave through the ground, ripping up the railways and destroying buildings. The shockwave even sent the park trains flying high into the sky, and when they landed their boilers ruptured and exploded. The swiftness of the attack didn't allow for any counter-attack from few defenders around the hub. The Nanabi's mouth opened wide and a green vortex of chakra appeared over its mandibles. It then fired the blast right at the large railway station where people were trying to flee from the Biju's rampage. The menacing ball smashed into the ground, boring at the station before it exploded. A massive dome of energy engulfed the station and the surrounding areas, nearly half a mountain range would be completely annihilated if the Nanabi shot at one. The dome broke and a secondary shockwave pulsed out of the center of the menacing ball, vaporizing and flattening everything for several kilometers. A large mushroom cloud raised from the area and Madara smirked, completely unharmed due to his ability. Excellent. First blood is mine, he said, leaping at the Nanabi before sucking it back into his dimension, and he himself vanished. All that was left of the station was a massive crater. It was like a meteor had struck. There was nothing left standing and the rail lines were ripped apart for kilometers. Madara had struck a blow that would cripple troop movements for months. Konoha Sakura was walking down the newly constructed streets of the village, trying to find Kakashi. Shikamaru was still shadowing her, pursing his lips. He continued to wonder when Sakura would talk to Naruto about the Konoha 11's decision about Sasuke, thinking she was putting it off. "Alright Sakura, are you going to have to make me do it?" Shikamaru thought. Sakura looked up and she saw Kakashi walking idly down the street, reading one of his favorite perverted books. She took off running after him, a look of determination appearing on her face. "Kakashi-sensei." She called out and the copy ninja paused and glanced back to wait for her to catch up. "Sakura. What's up?" Kakashi asked her as she panted a little bit from her sprint. "I need you to train me," Sakura said, rising up, and Kakashi blinked. "I need to get stronger, Kakashi-sensei, and Shishiyu is still unconscious plus I need to get stronger." Kakashi sighed. "Sakura, the only things you've taught me are the tree walking and Jinjutsu Kai, nothing else sensei," Sakura continued firmly, looking up at him. "And those were 3 entire years ago. You've ignored me in favor of Naruto and Sasuke when I was a genin, you barely taught me anything other than those 2 things. No new jutsus, no combat skills and techniques, nothing." Her teacher winced at that. "Well, you do have a point. Please sensei. I need this. I won't be on the sidelines when Naruto faces Sasuke, I want to help," Sakura finished, and Kakashi breathed out. "Very well Sakura," Kakashi said. "You didn't really need to lay it on that thick though," he thought, and she looked at him directly in the eye. "I will start teaching you ninjutsu and help you improve your taijutsu." Sakura's face brightened. "Thank you, sensei." Kakashi nodded. "You're welcome." To be continued. Chapter 7. To Lightning Island, Jinchuriki training. Konohagakure news had reached Konoha several days later that the Fire Country Northern Train Hub had been completely obliterated, leaving just a crater and twisted rail lines. It would take months for the transportation to be restored, months that were needed to organize the non-shinobi troop lines. The southern and western hubs were untouched, but the chain had been broken. The daimyo had declared a state of emergency in the wake of the attack and had agreed with Naruto about the shinobi alliance. The sheer power of one Biju was more than enough to convince him, as well as the other daimyos of the 5 great nations, to ally. In between the village reconstruction and the destruction of the northern train hub, Naruto had called an emergency meeting of the Kages. It took a few days for the Kages to arrive, and when they did, the meeting went underway. "Our total amount of soldiers that we have been able to get ready for the war is nearly 10,000, Mifune reported, leaning back in his seat. "And I'm organizing 5 more legions in case we need them. That gives us a total army of nearly 80,000, Naruto said, going over the organization. The allied shinobi forces would be mobilizing from Kumagakure, which had the largest army of all 5 great ninja villages. All of the villages had contributed to the army. Kumagakure had lent 20,000 ninja to the army, Iwagakure had lent 16,000, Konohagakure and Kurigakure both had lent 12,000, and Sunagakure had lent 10,000 ninja. All the villages were keeping 5,000 ninja in reserve at their home villages, just in case they came under attack during the war. Pillar B has already been sent to the hiding place, he thinks he's having a vacation, said, and Naruto nodded. "We're ready to send you there whenever you are ready, Hokage Dono." Naruto nodded. "I'm putting Kakashi Haddock in charge of the village while I'm away. Hopefully Tsunade-sama will awaken soon, we need her experience and abilities in this war." Inoki huffed at that. "She'd probably call for the Hachibi and yourself to stay on the battlefield instead of doing the smart thing." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "She'd have a point, but that's not the issue here." "If that's all," Gaara started, leaning back. "I believe we've finished for the day. I need to make sure my village is prepared for any assault," said, and all the other Kages nodded. "We'll reconvene at Kumo in 5 days. From there, I'll depart for this island afterwards," Naruto said, and they all nodded. All the other Kages nodded and began departing. After they left, Naruto went to do a little more training before the day finished. He was still trying to figure out how to start training to control the Kyuubi, but was getting nothing. Just as he finished stretching, he disappeared in a puff of smoke. He came blinkered and landed on a tablet that had many bug-related dishes on it. Shima came walking in. "Oh. Naruto-chan, here for dinner." Shima said happily and Naruto blinked. He said as Shima helped him into his seat. "I insist, I always make too much. And Pa'll be here soon so we can all eat together." Shima said and Naruto blinked. "Come, enjoy, enjoy." Naruto looked down at the rice bowls filled with rainbow-colored caterpillars and there were steamed giant pill bugs on a square plate. The young Hokage looked sick but smiled politely at Shima. She smiled back and he reached for some chopsticks. "Hey Granny Shima, I'm back." A new voice said and Shima looked up. "Denko?" Shima said and Naruto looked up as a young man with long white spiky hair, hazel eyes and red lines down his eyes entered. He was wearing a grey shirt over mail and blue-grey pants. His jaw dropped. Young man looked like Jiraiya, "You're home early, I thought you said you'd be back from Takigakure in 3 more weeks." Well, they're getting onto war footing, Granny. Kinda a bad time to visit the hot springs there, the young man, Tenko said with a grin before he paused, seeing Naruto. He blinked. Oh yes, this is the first time you two have met, Shima said, breathing out. And due to that damn prophecy that the old geezer made, he never met his father, she said under her breath. Naruto-chan, this is Tenko Jiraiya and Tsunade's son. Naruto's eyes widened. Jiraiya Shishiyu and Tsunade Bachan son, how? You two are the same age, Shima said, starting her explanation. Tsunade and Jiraiya-chan, they went out to celebrate Minato-chan, becoming the Hokage thing led to another, Jiraiya-chan managed to woo her for that night, one thing led to another and Tsunade ended up pregnant. She didn't tell Jiraiya-chan and left Konoha the next day with Shizune in tow. Then something happened. What? Naruto asked her and Shima closed her eyes. The Kyuubi no Yoko attacked Konoha and Tsunade ended up in Mayabakizan. She gave birth to Tenko Hare and then the great Toad Sage predicted something about Jiraiya's lineage and Pa went to find Tsunade after hearing. The prediction said the son of the Toad Sage would cross many lands and meet his father years past or something that Kisame now. Tenko had been born and Pa offered to train and take care of him. Mom visited if Tenny grew up here, Tenko said, rubbing the back of his head. Why did she give Tenko over so easily? Naruto asked and Shima rubbed the back of her head. I can be very persuasive when it comes to these things, Shima said and Naruto looked up at Tenko. It's nice to meet Yamane was Jiraiya's last student Naruto Uzumaki. Tenko blinked. You're me dad's last student man, I thought you'd be older. Naruto chuckled weakly, rubbing the back of his head as Fukasaku walked in. Naruto-chan, he then looked up to see Tenko. Well, this isn't what you were summoned for but it is time you two met. What was I summoned for? Naruto asked and Fukasaku grinned. The great Toad Sage has a prediction for you, Fukasaku said with a grin. He wanted you to come here Imadaya Kichi didn't get the location right in the reverse summoning. Naruto blinked. Alright, he looked at Tenko. Nice meeting you, never expected that Jiraiya Shishiyu had a son. Tenko grinned. I'll come with you to the old sage's place. Konoha. While Naruto had been transported to Mayabakizan, Sakura and Kakashi were currently sparring on one of the undamaged training fields outside of Konoha's walls. The pink-haired Kunoichi dodged a kick from the copy ninja, charged her chakra to her feet and retaliated with a strong kick. Kakashi's Sharingan predicted that and he ducked the kick and tripped Sakura. You're still leaving yourself too open for counterattack with those moves. Sakura breathed in and out, wiping her forehead. How about this then? She yelled, doing several seals and her hands charged up with the Chakura no Mesu, chakra scalpels. She ran forward at Kakashi, using her perfect chakra control to swipe at her teacher. The copy ninja leaped to the side to avoid the slash and she increased the size of the scalpel and cut completely through the tree, being him. Kakashi's eyes widened at that, seeing the tree fall, and Sakura dragged her other hand forward, lengthening the scalpel to a full sword and slashed up as he leaped back. Incrediblish turned her Chakura no Mesu into Chakura Ken, chakra swords, Kakashi thought, jumping back as Sakura leaped into the air. Tsutenkyaku, painful sky kick. Sakura yelled, slamming her heel down as Kakashi leaped back. The impact of her heel cratered the ground deeply as she swiped at her teacher with her Chakura Ken, chakra swords, in a scissors slash. Kakashi was hit and he puffed away. Sakura panted, powering down as the real Kakashi walked out. Very impressive, Sakura, I didn't expect that. Sakura panted. That's first time I've been able to beaten of your Bushins though, sensei. That's a good start, however, Kakashi said, giving a smile. I understand you have a Doton affinity, have you thought of adding a second element? No, I haven't. Well then, it might be a good idea, Kakashi said. Since you use Doton, Kaiten or Suiton might be a good way to supplement Doton's defensive capabilities. I guess you'll try for Kaiten then, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi nodded. Good idea. I know plenty of Kaitens to teach you. Sakura nodded rapidly, breathing in and out. At the same time, the other members of the Konoha 11 were also training to prepare to fight Sasuke Uchiha in the future. At the Hyuga compound, Hinata was practicing with her Byakugan. On her desk was the shards of the Hokage's necklace, which she had painstakingly put back together and attached to a golden chain. She was noticing something different about her eyes lately. She breathed in and out calmly. Whenever she activated her Byakugan lately, the blood vessels in her eyes sclera would flush with blood, giving them the appearance of being bloodshot on top of the bulging veins around her eyes. She could see even further and in more detail when it happened, but she was significantly more exhausted afterwards. I wonder if father or any of the elders know what's happening, Hinata thought, her Byakugan still activated as she got into Jaiken stance. Drawing her hands back, she breathed out as chakra surrounded them and then formed into huge lion heads around her. Juho Sashiken, gentle step twin lion fists. She yelled, charging at the targets. Thrusting her right arm forward, the jaws of the lion opened and latched onto the wooden target and she yanked back, tearing out a huge chunk of the target before smashing the other lion fist into the target, obliterating it. Hinata grinned, powering down her fists as splinters rained down. Powering down her Byakugan, her wide eyes turned back to normal, and the bloodshot look faded. At the Inyazuka compound, Kiba was riding on Akamaru, carrying the Senporoga, Whirlwind Wolf Fang, in his hand. It was a kodachi his grandfather used, said to be able to cut through anything. Charging it up with chakra, he pointed forward at a target. "Alright Akamaru, ready buddy." Kiba yelled as Akamaru barked, then leaped into the air. Tsuga, piercing fang. The target he was aiming at was a 2-meter wide slab of the hardest steel, and Kiba and Akamaru spun in their Tsuga at an insane amount of speed as Kiba pushed his Senporoga forward. They bore through the slab of steel, completely drilling through it. Landing on the other side, Kiba grinned and Akamaru barked in triumph. "That was awesome." Kiba yelled, jumping off Akamaru's back. Team Guy were training together, each trying to perfect new techniques. Since Neji was one of the only ones, besides Naruto, who had fought the current Sasuke, he was telling Rock Lee and Tenten what to look out for. Sasuke Uchiha currently has the Mangekyo Sharingan, and he could use the Amaterasu after being pushed, Neji said as he dodged Rock Lee's fist and then leaped back from Tenten's bow staff. "When you see his eye bleeding, either bring up something to block, Shunshin, body flicker, out of the way, Kirawami, substitution, something, or try to obscure his vision so you can't hit him." The no-head Dai Senpu, strong leaf hurricane. Lee yelled. He had removed his weights and did a spinning kick at Neji who ducked it. "What else should we prepare for, Neji?" "The Susanoo, Sasuke's ultimate defense," Neji said as his body glowed blue. "Kaiten." He yelled as one of Tenten's bombs exploded above him and he deflected all the blades that were shot from the bomb. Same old Neji, Tenten thought, preparing another weapon. "Is that it?" "Other than the other skills he had before, yes, that is," Neji said. At the Aburam compound, Shino was sitting with his legs crossed in a special room. Shibi, his father, was supervising his training. His son had requested the special insects that his clan had produced. The nano-sized poisonous insects, which would supplement his own hives of Kikai. To prepare to receive a hive of the nano-insects, Shino had to be completely cleansed of any foreign bodies, including his own hives of Kikai which were now being held in the room. If the nano-insects rejected Shino, Shibi would have only minutes to administer the antidote. "I am ready, father." "Release them," Shino said, his eyes closed and Shibi nodded. "Very well, Shino." Shibi pulled a lever and a small door opened and the microscopic insects flooded in. They were invisible to the naked eye, but there were millions of them. They all attached to Shino's skin and buried into it. The young Aburam's skin began to turn black as the microscopic insects flooded into him, and he kept his eyes closed calmly. Shibi watched his son for several minutes to see if there was any side effects. Slough of blackness faded and Shino's skin color returned to normal. The nano-sized insects have accepted him as their host, Shibi thought. Though that is the first step, has to learn to control them as well as make it so the two hives won't fight each other. At the Akamichi compound, Choza was watching as Choji attempted his new technique. The young Akamichi grew to tremendous size and then made a Doton seal, followed by a tiger. His skin then turned dull gray in color until his entire face, arms, and legs were colored in a dull gray tint. Akamichi Hiden. Tetsu Buddha, Akamichi hidden technique. Iron Buddha. Choji yelled, stomping forward and shaking the ground as he did one of Jiraiya's poses. "How's this, dad?" Choza grinned. "Great, son, though I could do without the kabuki pose." Choji grinned. "It's my tribute to Jiraiya-sama though." The Akamichi patriarch smirked, shaking his head. "Good, now we're going to test to see how much punishment you can take in that form." At the Yamanaka compound, behind the now rebuilt Yamanaka flower shop, Ino was busy training as well with her father. She was now lugging around a puppet on her back, blinking. "I have to learn Kugatsu no Jutsu, puppet technique, but I thought that was a Sunagakur technique." The Yamanaka originated in the land of wind, honey, Inoichi said with a smirk. "And besides, this technique will help you offensively as well as in scouting," the KK Ino said, breathing out. "Then another technique. Yes, after you master this one, you learn the strongest technique the Yamanaka has to offer." Finally, at the Nara compound, Shikamaru was now practicing the strongest of the shadow techniques, with Shikaku watching over him. A dummy had been set up in the middle of the field and then he activated the light bomb above the building that loomed over the training field. Nara Hiden. Kage Tetsu Odom, Nara's secret technique. Shadow Iron Maiden. Shikamaru yelled, first using the Kage Nui no Jutsu to impale the dummy from the bottom as the shadow of the building loomed in. He did 2 more seals and the shadow stood up and then slammed shut around the dummy. It then pulled it down into the ground, the dummy completely vanishing. Shikamaru pulled his hands apart, panting. There has to be an easier way to do this 2 techniques in rapid succession, latter taking a lot of chakra to do. He put his fingertips together and closed his eyes as he began to think. Shikaku smirked, watching as his son began thinking. He's the only person who could make this technique more practical, Shikaku thought, grinning. Mount Miyabaki's Naruto, Tenko, and Fukasaku were walking into the Great Toad Sage's building, and the young Hokage was looking up as the oldest giant toad loomed above them. His hands were over a crystal ball. Naruto-chan, Tenko-chan, what are you doing here? The Great Toad Sage said as Jiratara came out. You called me to be here, remember? Naruto yelled, waving his hand with a grin. Something about a prediction. It was about me, Naruto. Jiratara said, hopping over. Jiraiya wanted me to be stored inside you. This is the key to your seal, with it you can perfect that jutsu. Naruto breathed out at that and the Great Toad Sage leaned back. Oh yes, of course. I have to predict your future. Well, what is it? I will meet an octopus, he started, and Naruto blinked. An octopus, what? The vision is cloudy, but I see octopus tentacles, the Great Toad Sage explained. Then Ya will meet a young man with great power in his eyes, and yes, he know who that is and what I have to do, Naruto replied, and Fukasaku blinked. You do, Naruto-chan? Yes, I do, Naruto said, closing his eyes before looking up while focused. Very well, Jiratara, give him the key Yondame's seal. As you wish, elder. Jiratara yelled as the key scroll appeared from his stomach and he unraveled it. And there it was, the Yondame Hokage's 4-element seal. So this is the Kato opening the Kyuubi's cage, Naruto whispered, and Jiratara nodded. Yep, with this, you could release the Kyuubi completely if you wanted to, Jiratara said, holding his hand out. Now put your hand on the square. What are you waiting for? Put your hand on the seal. Fukasaku ordered. What are you waiting for? Put your hand on the seal. Fukasaku ordered. Fukasaku-sama, the Kyuubi's powers work like this. There's two parts of it, mind and chakra. To control the Kyuubi's power, you gotta pull out its chakra into your own. But it ain't as easy as it sounds. When you draw out the fox's chakra, its mind goes along for the ride. The Kyuubi's mind is a malevolent mass of hatred tied to a hugely powerful chakra. No matter how strong its hatred will latch onto the hatred of your own heart and try to take over. Basically, the only way to truly have control over its power is to have a strong enough will with no hatred and completely filter out the mind from the chakra. And what happens if that doesn't happen? Tenko asked. Well, Yondame designed his seal so a tiny bit of chakra would leak out and naturally combine with Naruto's own chakra. But with this key here, you could completely undo the 4-element seal and tap into the Kyuubi's full chakra. And with it, the full force of the Kyuubi's will. Fukasaku said. If that happens, the Kyuubi will be completely reborn. It'd even regain its yin chakra, which the Yondame Hokage sealed. He tried already opening the seal once? Fukasaku asked. The 4-element seal has been growing weaker with time, so during Naruto's training, Jiraiya tried to suppress the Kyuubi when Naruto started transforming out of nowhere. But the seal was loose and no telling when he'd transform again. So Jiraiya used a key to open a tiny crack, hoping to teach Naruto to repel its mind and take full control over its chakra. That didn't work out. What happened after that? Fukasaku asked. I honestly don't know. It's true, when I fought Orochimaru I went to the Kyuubi willingly to take control. When he started talking about Sasuke I snapped. I wanted to kill Orochimaru right where he stood. Beauty also hurt Sakura-chan. That's when Yamato Taicho told me to stop relying on the Kyuubi and start fighting on my own power, Naruto said, filling it in for them. Obviously I was fine when it was suppressed during training, but you can't help having your heart in battle. So I decided to never ask the Kyuubi again for help. He didn't think I had the strength to keep it from taking over my own mind again. Then when I saw Hinata-chan nearly die fighting Piney was so mad, I was full of rage. I let the Kyuubi out again without thinking. Then Yondame reinforced the seal and I felt safe again. But I could lose control again. Tenko looked at him. So are you going to take it? The next time I fight Sasuke, no, I'll need the Kyuubi's power and I won't endanger anyone else anymore. I can't escape the fact that I'm the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. It's time for me to stop running, Naruto said as his fingers started glowing and he put his hand to the square. I know I took a long time, but I'm ready to control this thing, Dad. The contract is sealed, I'm all yours. Jiratara said, raveling the scroll again. Land of Lightning. 5 days later, after storing Jiratara in his own body through swallowing him, Naruto had returned to Konoha with Tenko. Jiraiya's son would be coming with him to the island where the Alliance was sending him for training. After picking his team for the mission, Mito-gai, Aoba Yamashiro, Hinata Hyuga and Tenko, Naruto handed things over to Kakashi, who would take over commanding the Alliance even after he returned from training. Ai and Aoba were his bodyguards. Hinata was chosen since she was the best censor in all of Konoha, and Tenko sort of invited himself since he wanted to get to know his father's last student. On the boat to the island, Naruto was looking out as he closed his eyes. Hinata breathed out, looking over to him, and she walked over. Naruto-kun. Naruto looked back and smiled. Hey Hinata-chan, he rubbed the back of his head. He was still wearing his Hokage robes. Thanks for coming on such short notice. I was happy to do it, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, walking over. She was carrying something. too have something for you." Naruto blinked as she opened her hand and there was the reconstructed necklace of the first Hokage. Yara repaired it. Hinata nodded. "It took a bit to find all the possessive fused my own chakra into it, hope you like." Naruto cheered and picked Hinata up and spun her around. "Thank you. This is really important to me, Hinata-chan." "Why, you're welcome, Naruto-kun," Hinata said as she blushed. Naruto set her down and the two glanced into each other's eyes, blushing slightly. "Thanks, Hinata-chan," Naruto said, looking at her as he breathed in. "I really appreciate it." He then hugged her and she but hugged him back. Pulling away, the young Hokage put the necklace back on and stored it beneath his clothes. He looked at her and smiled. The two hugged again and then looked off out to sea. There would be at least 2 days until they reached the island and he remembered that the great Toad Sage had said it was a paradise. Naruto grinned and he stretched, prepared for anything now. To be continued. What if Naruto, rokudaime Hokage Kage Summit. Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.